using us as slave labor.
The uprising is upon us!
We're under attack!
The quantum effect wipes out pain and allergy symptoms in less than 30 seconds with 0 drugs. Pastor Dave and hundreds of others have experienced the quantum effect for themselves. It's backed by scientific research and rigorous lab testing. Quantum is simply about 2 things. 1, intentions. As a man thinketh, so he is. And 2, renewing your mind with the Word of God. Only QE Strong encodes key intentions and Bible verses about healing onto the small patch. You simply place it on your body each day. And with a bonus prayer guide, read out loud a positive intention and 1 or 2 Bible verses about healing each day. The patch provides the touch, and the prayer guide uses your sight, speech, and hearing to relieve pain and allergy symptoms with the senses God gave you. It even works for people who have suffered decades of chronic symptoms. Are you ready to experience the quantum effect? Go to QEstrong.com/Mary.
Good morning, my beauties and bees. Hello, hello, and welcome to the Hive. Got kind of a new setup here. Glad to see everybody, though. We're rocking and reeling this morning. Hope everybody is doing well. It is June 14th, 2025, and it is currently 8:40 a.m. So, yeah, it's time to get this show on the road. I rearranged some different things. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. I rearranged a couple of different things so that the layout's a little different and more in line with the current setup that most streamers are using. I was doing, yeah, you all know I did like the me down in the corner kind of thing. But now I've been seeing more and more like a setup with it where it's side by side, kind of like this, where you're, hold on, where you're, let's see. Yeah, like this, where it's side by side. So hopefully that's better. And plus, I got this freaking hot body, and you should be able to see it because my hotness. My mic is a little bit off. Is it loud or soft? check to make sure my mic settings are on the right microphone, because sometimes it'll flip me over to the webcam mic, and we don't want that. USB condenser mic. Okay, and I was a little bit late coming back in here because one of my nieces posted this thing this morning on one of. So I posted. Let me read it. Okay, so I posted. Can we try to remember that California, New Mexico, Arizona, Texas, and parts of Colorado, Nevada, and Utah are colonized and occupied regions of Mexico, forcefully annexed by hostile forces via the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo in 1848? The inhabitants owe no allegiance to the U.S. any more than Georgia or the Ukraine owe allegiance to Russia. And I said, edit, sad. How many people don't realize that the southwestern United States has had 300 years of genetic intermingling with the indigenous Spanish population, a very tiny Spanish population too. Mexican, American, Latino people are mostly native of ancestry. They do have Spanish ancestry, but they're mostly native genetically. The indigenous Spanish population of the Southwest and were forcefully annexed in a post-war treaty by imperialist ambitions of the United States. And my blonde-haired, blue-eyed, 25-year-old niece was like, people have been conquering lands from others since the beginning of time. And it stands in 2025, the land belongs to the USA. Therefore, they need to obey the laws of the owners of that land and will continue to be that way until that country is able to take it back by force, which I do not see happening. Talking about Mexico taking the Southwest back. We should just give it back to the people who are native there. That's my opinion on a lot of native land. But there is a way to come into our country illegally, which has nothing to do with these riots. These riots are not about people coming into the country illegally. These riots are about these people are being illegally. These people are being picked up outside of their immigration hearings. They're trying to do the legal process, and ICE is getting them outside of their homes. I'm sorry. I'm so mad about this. I did the first thing I saw when I woke up this morning. They chose to do it that way, to be born here and live here and be native to this country. The people at these protests are not all illegal immigrants. They're native people who have been here thousands of years, longer than our ancestors have, because I'm your aunt, and I know that they've been here longer. So, or they've been here longer than our ancestors have. And they're mad because you're deporting their cousins because you drew an imaginary line and said their cousin couldn't cross it. To come see them, to come spend time with them, to come stay with them, to move in with them. It doesn't fucking matter. Borders are stupid. But what do you think would happen to me if I went over to Mexico, burned the flag in the streets while waving an American flag? We would be killed point blank. No, you would not. I can cross over to Juarez right now and burn a Mexican flag and wave an American flag, and nothing bad's going to happen to me because they're not fascist in Mexico. As I said, people have been conquering lands from others since the beginning of time, and for people to use that, it used to be their land. I'm not saying it used to be their land. They still live there. It still is their land. A lot of them still own their property, ancestral land they've had for hundreds of years. Thousands of years. I didn't mean to do this morning. I'm sorry. Excuse to justify them burning our flag is insane. It's not my flag. You think the U.S. flag might be your flag? It's not my flag. I never swore. Well, I was forced to swear allegiance to that stupid, ugly ass flag when I was a kid all through schools, but I don't have any allegiance to the American flag. I think it's dumb as hell to swear allegiance to a piece of cloth. I think it's dumb as hell to get all upset for somebody burning the piece of cloth. People burn pride flags. I'm a queer woman. Should I be offended by that? Cry me a river. You sure have been enjoying the rights and freedom of the U.S. offers your entire life, but now want to stand behind and defend people who are burning the flag that symbolizes those rights and freedoms. Honey, I am a queer woman living in America. I was literally forced into the closet by your freedom for almost 40 years, forced to pretend to be somebody I'm not out of fear of of public persecution and ostracization and becoming a social pariah for most of my life. And you're going to tell me about the freedoms that I enjoyed here, the freedoms to live a secret life because the religious culture that I was subjected to is toxic. The people that I grew up with in that little town that we lived in, that you grew up in too, are toxic as hell. And look what they did to you and your brain. Anyway, but I said, I tried to be nice to her because she's young. I said, sounds like you've been hammered with a lot of disinformation. People being attacked by ICE are not here illegally, and even if they were, there is no way to tell since they're not being given due process. They are being picked up by mass thugs outside of their immigration hearings. Flags represent nations, not people, and or songs represent people, not our nations of people, not land. The people represented by the symbols on the the Mexican flag have been here for thousands of years. If you want to support might makes right race wars, that's of course on you. If it didn't used to be their land, it still is. They have lived that way. They have lived there, and that's why they are protesting U.S. rights and freedoms. I have struggled my whole life as a queer person in an oppressive religious society. The U.S. is a horrible place for queer people and people of color. We've spent the last 200 years fighting for our basic human rights in your cis white het utopia that was carved out just for you. All right, I'm gonna shut up about this now. I'm mad, but I'm gonna shut up about it. And we're going to get right into Cryptic Corner. But first, we got to look at the polls, actually, because I got this pulled up here. Oh, yeah, well, that's what I wanted to do. I checked this out. I set this up. So now, when I do this, I can actually... I have this little thing now. So, over here. Yeah, so let's look at those polls. Yeah, this is the poll for today. So today, for Cryptic Corner, on the polls, we had the Nandi bear, which is an African cryptid carnivore of some kind. We'll figure it out. Then you got your spooky, scary skeletons from Canada, which is a whole lot of ghost lore attached to it. Then we have the Beast of Busco, which is a giant snapping turtle from Indiana. But the Immortal Count Saint Germain has won the day. So that's who we're going to be popping over to here in just a minute. But the other poll, Knights of Tartaria finally pulled ahead. So on this poll for our Weekend Weird, we had the Charming the Serpent, which is Snake Charming, and we're going to talk about that. We had ties for second places, the Behold the Sky Trumpets and the Supernatural Serial Killers. So both those are going to be fun topics when we get to those. But today we're doing Knights of Tartaria, which is going to be a wild ride. So stick around for that. And then we'll wrap it up the show talking about Olms, which are a wicked salamander from the southern European Alps. Mm-hmm. All right, and let's just move right into Cryptic Corner. I will see you guys over there. Hello, my beauties and bees, and welcome to another installment of Cryptic Corner, where we explore the unexplained, the supernatural, the paranormal and hidden, the mysterious, the alien, the accursed, and the forbidden. I'm your host, Bumblebee, and today we are talking about this guy. His name is Count Saint Germain, the Immortal Count, as he's sometimes remembered in history books, because he was around for allegedly, a long time. We talked about the Super Centurions before. Bigfoot pole dancing in the live chat now going on right now, if you missed it. Yeah. Better close that. I have my FetLife open. I don't want to accidentally share that screen. Y'all see what kind of unhinged stuff I'm into there. Alright, so we're going to, in order to explore Saint Germain, we're going to be visiting a big channel, one of these big goofy ass channels, Be Amazed, with its 13.2 million subscribers. This is a big channel. They do all kinds of weird stuff though. Look at this, they got legendary creatures that actually exist in real life, and then they'll show you that creature did not exist in real life. But yeah, obviously, headphones gonna put a dent in your head and things like that, all sorts of weirdness. But they have how the universe is bigger than you think, animals that were scarier than dinosaurs. So you get kind of the idea what kind of channel we're looking at here. Was it Bigfoot Jesus? Yeah. The music is still going. Why is the music still going? Sorry guys, I did not mean for that to happen. I was a thing that got left up. I couldn't see it because it was way down there. I'm gonna start all over again, I guess. Why not? Because I can't edit that out. All right, let me do it. Let me start from the top. Hello, my beauties and bees, and welcome to Cryptic Corner, where we explore the unexplained, the supernatural, the paranormal and hidden, the mysterious, the alien, the accursed, and the forbidden. I'm your host, Miss Bumblebee, and today we are going to be looking at this guy right here. This is Count Saint Germain. He was the Immortal Count, allegedly, but we'll find out. We'll dabble our nose and toes in it and see what the truth of the matter is. But in order to do so, we are going to be visiting Be Amazed, one of these big channels with lots of woo-woo content that gets loads of views. I mean, this is 13.2 million viewers, so no, my FetLife window wasn't covering it. It could have been, but it wasn't. There's a scroll menu here. Anyway, yeah, we're looking at Be Amazed, and I mean, these videos do huge. There's hundreds of thousands of views, and they're mostly nonsense. You got unbelievable historical coincidences and claims that the headphones are gonna wear down your skull, and yeah, it's sort of nonsensical. No, I can't hear, like, the music that's in OBS. I can't hear though. Only you guys can hear it live. There should be new commands though, I think. Let me see, because I reactivated some of them that I had before. Check this out. I got, hopefully this works. Let's see if it works. Maybe it will. If not, I'll have to update it. Nope, it's not working. Oh well, that's okay. Well, I'll get it fixed for next week. Had some sound files and stuff. Anyway, yeah, but Be Amazed. Be Amazed is who we're going to be dabbling with today. And we're going to talk to them about the Immortal Count, the Count of Saint Germain.
Achieving immortality may sound like the stuff of fiction, but this is the startling claim of a mysterious, real-life historical figure called the Count of Saint Germain. His existence has been recorded in numerous accounts throughout history, as recently as the 1970s, yet he never seemed to age, and sometimes took on alternate identities. He was sometimes known as Der Wundermann, or the Wonder Man, and has been
Der
considered...
Wundermann. I'm Der Wundermann. The Wonder Man. Die Wundermädchen? Das Wundermädchen?
considered a prophet, a charlatan, a healer, a spy, and a visionary. But who
I'm not a girl, though. Be Das Wunderfrauen. Das Wunderfrauen. That's me.
was the immortal Count, and could he really live forever?
Oh, I didn't know there was an alcohol called Saint Germain. I did get some American honey because we're gonna start working on a signature drink for the Hive. It's gonna be badass. I'm actually having Ben help me concoct it because Ben has some bartending skills.
This engraving, created by Nicholas Tomas in 1783, is one of the only known images we have of the Count of Saint Germain. It was apparently based on a lost painting once owned by the Marquis du Fray.
Yes, you're right. Frauen would be plural, but I'm not plural. I'm a one woman, so it'd be Frau, right? Just me. Frau Wunder.
One of the richest and most eccentric women in France. Although it would probably be best to start this tale at the very beginning, the origin story of this mysterious count is murky, to say the least. Exactly when the man who went, or goes, by the name of Count of Saint Germain was born is unknown. Most accounts suggest it was sometime around the 1690s. In fact, a genealogy compiled by Isabel...
I did take a little bit of German. Well, I shouldn't say I took German. I did the first year of, the full year of the pandemic. I did German on my first 2 years of the pandemic. I did German on my Duolingo. And then one day I missed my streak. I had a solid streak all the way through. And I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm not doing this again. Because I don't want to start all over again. And so I gave up learning German. Now that I'm in the Southwest, I should learn Spanish, though. Seems like Spanish would be a better language for me to learn. Hey, Spooky!
Cooper Oakley, for her book The Comte de Saint Germain, The Secret of Kings, asserts that he was...
Did I get rated? Because somebody's out there saying they don't know how they got here. This is The Hive. I'm Bree, Bumble Bree. Live from The Hive is my Saturday morning show. I talk mostly about debunking woo and folklore and stuff like that. When we kind of like put it under the modern lens and trying to break down and figure out what's going on. It's a critical thinking Wunderbrie. It's a critical thinking program, basically. I just kind of have fun. We joke around. We get goofy. And we talk about monsters and woo and ghosts and aliens and conspiracy theories. So if you're into that sort of stuff, then stick around because that's what we do here. I am a cryptozoologist first and foremost. I'm also a former paranormal investigator. I don't really do that much anymore. So I have the experience to kind of know the ropes a little bit, and that's what I'm doing here. That's what this program on Saturday morning is all about. When we come at you live from the Hive.
Born the son of Francis Rákóczi II, Prince of Transylvania, in 1690.
I love the Immortal being associated with Transylvania. That seems to be the land of the Immortals.
Meanwhile, various
Wallachia.
other claims state that he was the illegitimate son of Maria Anna of Plaus-Neuburg, the widow of Charles II of Spain, or even the son of the King of Portugal, presumably John V. Although we may not know for sure, he seems to have been at least some degree of royalty. It was too removed by lineage to be able to assume the throne. Other rumors, taken less seriously, suggest that he was actually around during the time of Christ.
Oh yeah, there's a lot. This goes deep. It goes back to, there was a guy that mocked Jesus. We'll get to it. It's in here. But there's a few people that they claim this, he's the Wandering Jew. That's what it is. It's the Wandering Jew. Spoilers, but yeah.
and even attended the wedding at Cana, where young Jesus turned water into wine. The particularities of the Count's actual birth, life, and death are based mostly on conflicting anecdotes and legendary accounts, and it's safe to say he is, to this day, a living mystery. Before we dive any deeper,
So there is, there's a lot of anecdote, but there's written accounts too. I mean, it's going to be fun. Punk and I still haven't done a Vlad show. We planned like 2 years ago.
Why don't you go and show those like and subscribe buttons some love?
They're talking about to my channel, by the way. You need to like and subscribe for the Hive. If that's definitely what you should do. You should go out there and hit the little thumbs up button, hit the like button, and we'll continue on with BMA's coverage of the Count of Saint Germain. But I do need you all to subscribe. Hit the thumbs up and engage with the chat. That's what I need from you. That's what we need.
In return, but I can promise to deliver a whole host of weird, wonderful, and downright amazing content right to your subscription box. What are you waiting for? One thing that is widely agreed upon is how accomplished the Count of Saint Germain was believed to be when it comes to alchemy. This ancient branch of natural philosophy seeks to elicit some form of supernatural...
Alchemy is just proto-chemistry. For anybody who doesn't know, and I'm assuming my audience is pretty learned, but alchemy was like the early days of chemistry when they were trying to figure out how different substances and elements and materials interact with each other and trying to get specific interactions, like turning lead into gold and things like that. There have been historically, there were some very famous alchemists who were also scientists, because alchemy was a branch of science at the time. It just got replaced by chemistry once better modern understanding of the periodic table came into play. Happy Pride to you, Pragmatic Crystal. But what was I saying? Alchemy. But Francis Bacon was an alchemist. Roger Bacon was an alchemist. Isaac Newton was an alchemist. So alchemy shouldn't necessarily be frowned upon by modern society like there's something wrong with it, because it did give us modern chemistry, and does have a lot of it did have a lot of influence on modern, like I said, Isaac Newton did have a lot of influence on modern physics.
Natural change through material experimentation. This usually involved turning basic substances, such as metals, into other, more valuable substances. One of the main goals of alchemy...
The funny thing about alchemy and its goal to turn other substances into gold is that the ability to do so would immediately devalue gold. Gold would suddenly become complete, or at least non. Well, it'd be like what happened when they discovered how to make synthetic diamonds, right? It didn't devalue real, like, natural diamonds, but there became a cheaper alternative. So there'd just be cheaper gold. But unfortunately, gold is an element, so we're not going to be able to turn anything else into gold. You can maybe draw gold from the environment. There's, I believe, there's meteors and asteroids in the asteroid belt that have like a lot of gold in them. We just need to get out there and get it. We can make wires for days.
Alchemy is to create something called projection powder, otherwise known as the elusive Philosopher's Stone, a concept made famous with modern audiences by author J.K. Rowling in the Harry Potter franchise. In alchemy, this mystical substance is said to be able to turn base metal franchise. In alchemy, this mystical substance is said to...
I gotta make my most manly trans woman face. So let me try this. Yeah. Okay. I just had to do that for JK.
To be able to turn base metals such as lead into pure gold. But that's not all. The Philosopher's Stone could also be used as an elixir that would bestow immortality on those who
Death
drank
Becomes
it.
Her. That's a good movie. I haven't seen it in forever, but there's a music video where Sabrina Carpenter and Jenna Ortega kind of review rehash the Death Becomes Her plot in like a music video. It's really good. I was just talking about it with one of my friends on Facebook, so I bring it up. Hello, Wraith. Welcome to the show. I'm Bree. This is my Hive, and we do a morning show mostly about woo and stuff like that. So yeah.
They speculated that the Count may have discovered this secret of alchemy, which rewarded him with his famed powers of immortality. Those who met the Count of Saint Germain were said to be astonished by his seemingly supernatural abilities. Upon meeting the Count in 1760, the famous Italian author Casanova commented, "This extraordinary man would say in an easy, assured manner that he was 300 years old, that he knew the secret."
Now, we're going to take anything Casanova says with a grain of salt because he's Casanova and he knows all the right things to say.
Of universal medicine, that he possessed a mastery over nature, that he could melt diamonds. All this, he said, was a mere trifle to him. No one likes a bragger, Saint Germain. Although he would eventually outlive them, most of the Count's travels have been documented by others throughout history. Despite word of his existence stemming back centuries, the Count of Saint Germain first came into prominence in the high society of Europe. After allegedly spending 5 years learning jewelry craft in the Shah of Persia's court, the Count arrived in Versailles in 1742, where he beguiled the royals and the rich.
You know, we're going to find out the secret to this, and it's going to be so disappointing when you all find out it's dietary and it's lame. Like, I don't even know if I'd want to live forever on this diet, but you'll find out what this man's diet was here in a minute.
Elites with his vast knowledge of science and history, his natural charm, and quick wit. There were no doubts that he was a man of great education. In fact, he reportedly spoke many languages fluently, including French.
Just call him a polyglot. I love that word. Ben taught me that word. I'd never heard it before. And I'm like, hell yeah, I'm going to start using that in my day-to-day language. But how little I actually ended up using it, that's beyond the point. Count Saint Germain was a polyglot.
German, Dutch, Spanish, Portuguese, Russian, and English, as well as being familiar with Chinese, Latin, Arabic, and even ancient Greek and Sanskrit. He was also a man of many talents. He was an accomplished painter, could play the violin like a virtuoso, was ambidextrous, allegedly able to simultaneously
You know who else is ambidextrous? This bitch. Yo. What? I am ambidextrous. But it's not cool like this, like it's showing here though. I can and it's actually sadder. The reason I'm ambidextrous is sad. I'm not like ambidextrous by birth. I was like the last generation of kids that they're like, you cannot be left-handed. Because I don't know how many of y'all know this. I'm from a set of twins. I am the left-handed twin. So we can't stand for that. Right? We cannot stand for a left-handy. So when I was in school, the idea was to teach me to write with my right hand. Teach me to cut and everything with my right hand. So I do all that stuff with my right hand. I still write and cut and everything with my left hand like I'm in kindergarten because that's when I would have learned how to do it. Then, lo and behold, it comes to athletics. Well, I couldn't train my my left hand or my right hand to do that stuff, so I still throw balls and catch balls and swing things and twirl batons with my left hand like a boss. Yeah, so I became ambidextrous by default. So I write and do all the fine work with my right hand, and I do all the strength work with my left hand. Long story to go, saying, hey, oppressive society. No, stop pausing the wrong screen. There we go.
Compose a letter with one hand and poetry with the other. Basically, you had no hope of impressing the ladies at a party if this guy was around. The Count of Saint Germain was also thought to be very wealthy, despite having no...
He looks like super smug in all the pictures, too. He's got this... Expect him to do like the Bigfoot nod.
no recorded bank accounts. Perhaps
looks
this
blurry.
suggests he was descended from royalty, or even that he really could turn base metals into gold through alchemy. According to some accounts, he set up an elaborate
Well, you know what it does? I
laboratory
set my
wherever he
lighting and my
traveled,
makeup up
and
for
claimed
this.
to be able
There
to
we go.
turn several small diamonds
There we
into
go. I set it up to do the mood lighting, and I forgot to close my window. I open the window because it makes it easier to do my makeup. And plus, I want my makeup to look okay in natural light too, which is a totally different directive. Yeah.
pearls into big ones, which he used to decorate his clothes. He was also a man of many quirks, although he dined regularly with
Oh my gosh, you didn't know I was a twin, Kip? Yes, Mike twin. I'm an identical twin, so I have a twin brother who's cis. Yeah. I got all the fabulous genes. You have twin daughters, Rafe? Cool. The nuns hit my friend's grandma's hands with a ruler till she wrote the right hand. Yeah. No one hit my hand with a ruler, but they would take the pencil out of my left hand and put it in my right hand if they saw me writing with that. And they got mad at me, which is weird because it's what I turned out being when they'd ask me to, they were filling out my evaluation stuff, and they'd ask me which hand I use, and I would say both. They would get super mad and be like, well, which dominant hand do you use? I'm like, I'd be like, it depends on what I'm doing. Yeah. And they'd be like, what? Yeah. Renaissance smugness in the late age of enlightenment. I mean, the idea, the folklore behind this guy is he is the age of enlightenment, right? He's the one who brought enlightenment to Western Europe. He was involved with everything.
friends for company, he was rarely seen eating food in public. In fact, it was said he lived on a diet of oatmeal alone. Anyone who had the pleasure of making the Count's acquaintance had no doubt that he was truly a remarkable man. But it was one anecdote from the year 1760 that seemingly gave rise to the idea that he was actually immortal. That year, the Count was in Paris when an elderly woman named Countess von Georgi heard that he would be attending a soiree at the home of Madame de Pompadour, the mistress of King Louis XV.
Can we just take a moment to appreciate the name Madame de Pompadour? Because a pompadour, I think like the Elvis Presley hairdo, right? Or Beavis and Butthead, a pompadour.
Of France. The old countess was intrigued by the news because she herself had personally
And irrational envy of twins is ridiculous because, you know what? Oh, 16 months, Ember. You slay, bitch. But I never got my own birthday. I'm the younger of the twins, which is really funny because I was a girl and they didn't know I was a girl. So I spent most of my youth just mimicking my brother. And it was really weird because he was into stuff that I really didn't understand why he was into stuff that I didn't understand why we were into. The irony, right? It's like you're not into it because it doesn't appeal to your young girl mind. You want to be doing these other things.
known a Count of Saint Germain when she was in Venice in 1710. When she met the Count for a second time, she was astonished to find he looked as if he hadn't aged a day. Naturally, she asked if perhaps his father formerly lived in Venice and went by the same name. To this, the Count simply replied, "No, madame, but I myself was living in Venice at the end of the last and beginning of this century. I had the honor to pay you court then." And totally perplexed, the Countess declared that this would be impossible, stating, "The Count of Saint Germain I knew in those days was at least 45 years old. And you, at the outside, are that age at present." One might assume the elderly countess was simply mistaken, but there are...
Bitch needs to get her eyes checked, maybe. Madame du Pompadour is a legend in her own right. Also, Louis the 15th granted the first legal recognition of a trans woman in Europe. Yeah, Europe was always very progressive for queer people.
Reported accounts of the Count being of a similar age in Venice at that time. Author Karl Heinrich von Gleichen wrote in his book Souvenirs de Charles Henri, Baron de Gleichen, published in 1868, "I have heard Rameau and an old relative of the French ambassador at Venice testify to having known Saint Germain in 1710, when he had the appearance of a man of 50 years of age. The Count is said to have been seemingly unbothered by the Countess's discovery, simply telling her, "Madame, I am very old," with a knowing smile. Do you guys think it's possible to achieve immortality? Maybe you met some
So we're gonna get to the part where he changes his name to Keith Richards soon. Just stick around; it'll happen.
one who seemed wise beyond their years and couldn't shake the feeling that you knew them in a past life. Share your stories below. I'm genuinely interested. Now let's get back to it. A complete timeline of the Count's supposed whereabouts over the centuries, made up of mainly anecdotes, historical
Oh shit, T.S. Christine Slays. You didn't know I was a doll? Uh-huh. I'm assuming you're a doll too, based on your name. I just saw that in the chat.
records and literary accounts is far too extensive to cover. Throughout the 18th century, however, the Count of Saint Germain traveled widely through Europe, using his seemingly endless knowledge of politics and the world to charm the elite. During the 1740s, he became a trusted diplomat in the court of King.
You came over from my sexy ass Instagram. Y'all should check out my sexy ass Instagram. I don't know which Instagram it was though, because I got two of them. I got one for Hive Sci, which is what we're doing here, and I got another one for Spider Gwen, which you'll see my adult content stuff popping up around here because I like to play too. I am a very sexually liberated woman.
Louis XV of France, allegedly performing secret missions for him in England. In 1763, he performed a similar function at The Hague in the Netherlands, which is where he met the infamous lover Giacomo Girolamo Casanova. In 17...
Oh, I want to hear that name again.
Where he met the infamous lover Giacomo Girolamo Casanova.
Giacomo Girolamo Casanova. Casanova is what we know him as today. By his first name's his first and middle name is hard to resist trying to say.
In 1765, he traveled to Russia, where it is said he was complicit in a conspiracy that placed Catherine the Great on the throne. In 1774, he returned to France when Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette.
Yeah, if you look anywhere on the internet, if you see Hive Sci, that's me, Hivesci. If you see somebody else using it, let me know though, so I can berate them and be like, "Bitch, listen." I don't know what I'll say after that, because like other people have used CrypticCorner since I started using it, and there's nothing I can do about it. It's like, other channels are using it, and they're getting more views than me, so what can I do?
Net occupied the throne.
Ryan, hey love, hope you're well. I watched your thing with Apostate Sisters last night while I was doing some thumbnails. Fun time.
While there, he acted as the Queen's mysterious advisor and apparently warned them of the revolution that would follow 15 years in the future. It's really no surprise that Marie Antoinette gravitated towards the Count, considering that we know she was obsessed with maintaining her own appearance of youth and beauty. We know about the Count's stay at the French royal.
Wait, what movie did Kristen Dunst play Marie Antoinette? She looked like she's like stole the show. There's some roles that Kristen Dunst was not made to play. I don't think she was a very good Mary Jane Watson in the Spider-Man series. She was an amazing Claudia in Interview with the Vampire, though. And she seems like she'd be a great Marie Antoinette. This Mary Jane's like a fashion model diva kind of chick, which I know, and then Kristen Dunst portrayed her as like a theater kid instead, which is fine, but like to reinvent the character that way. But yeah.
Royal court, thanks to translated passages from a rare book from 1821 called Souvenirs de Marie Antoinette, which was written by the Countess d'Ademar, an intimate friend of the Queen. She names Saint Germain multiple times and writes, "He appeared at the court of France long before me. It was 1743. Whence did he come?" That is what no one has ever been able to learn. Once more, he is described as being about 40 to 45 years old, while his countenance, haughty, intellectual, acute, struck one at first sight. After his stay at the French court of Versailles, the Count traveled to Hamburg, Germany in 1779, where he befriended Prince Charles of Hesse-Kassel. According to Isabel
How you? I understand being immortal. How you get like brunch with all these famous aristocrats and stuff? Though that's what I want to know, because if I know how to get brunch at Mar-a-Lago or something like that, well, I'm gonna take that opportunity. And go have brunch in Mar-a-Lago.
Cooper Oakley, in her book The Comte de Saint-Germain, perhaps the most famous biography of Saint-Germain's life, upon arrival, the Count told Prince Charles that he was the son of the Transylvanian prince Francis II Rákóczi, and that he was 88 years old. The Count impressed the prince with his gem collection and convinced him that he had invented a new way of coloring cloth. According to the prince's personal memoirs, he outfitted a laboratory in his nearby summer residence in Louisland, where he and the Count collaborated in alchemical experiments as well as creating gemstones and jewelry. For the next 5 years, the Count of Saint-Germain lived in an abandoned factory on the prince's estate in Eckernford. Local records state that is also where the Count died on February 27th, 1784. Talk about a plot twist. He was buried in a private grave on March 2nd, and his death was recorded in the register of the St. Nikolai Church in Eckernford.
Oh, he did die, so he's not immortal after all, right? Right? Oh.
On April 3rd that year, the mayor and the city council issued an official proclamation about auctioning off the Count's remaining effects, should no living relative appear to claim them.
Hopefully they were in better shape than that, though. I don't think that he had a old-timey radio or cactuses in his backyard, but...
Prince Charles donated the factory to the crown, and it was later converted into a hospital. And for an ordinary
adjacent to the line. That's an interesting approach to it. I live with, I have a roommate. I have two roommates, but one of my roommates you may know as Dr. Ben. That's actually, if you hear a little puppy barking and yapping that's Henry. That's Dr. Ben's little pup. So yeah, I mean, I'm not associated with the line. I'm friends with some of the people in the lines. I'm friends with Arden and Matt, and obviously I'm friends with Ben. Other people. I do run a different show with Stephanie Helms, who's been on the line, and Carly Chardonnay Webb, who's been on the line, and Ember Bellrad, who's in the chat, of course, called the Transpositions. Yes, that Dr. Ben. Yeah, he's right. If I go through that door around the corner, I will find Dr. Ben dealing with his fussy pop. Yeah. For a long time, he was known as Student Dr. Ben, but now he's Dr. Ben.
mortal, this would be the end of the story. But for the Count of Saint-Germain...
He commented earlier. Yeah. Can you... Let's see. Yeah, it still shows him on there if you add him. He's still got this playing somewhere.
Not even close. As we know, the Count was about as far from ordinary as you can get. In fact,
he's in
the renowned
chat.
18th century philosopher Voltaire, a well-respected man of science and reason, said himself Saint-Germain is a man who never dies and who knows everything. The Count's death may have been officially recorded.
Voltaire, another very notable and wise source, of course.
But that didn't stop him from popping up again throughout the 19th and 20th centuries. In 1785, he was reportedly seen in Germany with...
Yeah, I have no allegiance to the line. Or anything like that. But yeah, I'm friends with the people on there. Yeah.
Anton Mesmer, the pioneer hypnotist.
Now that's where the term mesmerize comes from, is mesmer, and he was like a charlatan. We talked about him a bit in our psychic. Was it the psychic spy episode? Yeah, just like because you have to start somewhere. Start at the beginning with hypnotizing people. Maybe it was we got into like MS-13 and stuff like that because. You know, there are ways to jack someone's brain up enough to make them do shit. You know, it's MS-13. What the fuck am I talking about in MS-13? I got this immigration thing on my brain. MK Ultra. Jesus Christ, Brie.
Masonry records, such as one account from the German Magazin de Weibsführer für Verteilung des Freimaurerordens,
Well, I like you enough for all of us, Kip.
also state that the group chose the Count of Saint Germain as their representative for a convention in Paris that same year. Countess d'Ademar even writes of seeing the Count
Well, instead of focusing on who you don't like over there, why don't you tell me who your favorite person over there is, instead of saying, hey, I don't like this person, because it's a whole team effort over there, and there's some great people that work, and they do good, they do good charity work and stuff like that, so... Yeah, obviously I'm gonna go with Ben, because my livelihood depends on it's because Ben's just a good guy.
multiple times more in France, including an appearance at Marie Antoinette's execution in 1793. In her book,
Which apparently he gave her forewarning about. He's like, hey Marie, here in about 15 years they're gonna cut off your head, girl. My birthday week is over. Happy almost birthday to you. Yeah, my birthday is around the corner. My birthday is exactly a month away now, because my birthday is July 14th.
she writes, I saw Saint Germain again, and always to my unspeakable surprise, at the assassination of the Queen. The
Because of John. I know you had your back and forth with John Gleason.
Countess also claims to have seen the Count 5 times more, totally unaged. The final time was on the eve of the murder of Duc de Berry in 1820, just 2 years before she herself died in 1822. But these aren't the only significant historical events the Count was reportedly seen at. According to the Freemasons, whom the Count was rumored to...
Oh yeah, Forrest is awesome. I think Forrest might actually be Saint Germain. Wouldn't that be crazy if... I mean... You do see the resemblance, right, between Saint Germain and Forrest Valkai. I'm not the only one.
to be a part of, a mysterious man bearing a resemblance to Saint Germain was also present at the signing of the Declaration of Independence in 1770.
See, Saint Germain made America. He made America great again the first time. But it couldn't have been again because it was the first time. So, yeah.
75, nearly 10 years before his death was recorded in Germany. To avoid rousing suspicion, it would also seem that the Count also assumed new identities at various times. In 1820,
Including Forrest Valkai. Doom, doom, doom.
Englishman Albert Vandam wrote in his memoirs An Englishman in Paris of a mysterious man he knew towards the end of Louis Philippe's reign, and whose life bore a curious resemblance to that of the Count of Saint Germain. He called himself Major Fraser, writes Vandam. He lived alone and never alluded to his family. Moreover, he was lavish with money, though the source of his fortune remained a mystery to everyone.
Can you call him and send him my way, please? I need someone lavish with their money to help get my hive buzzing off the ground, please. Be lavish with me, Saint Germain.
He possessed a marvelous knowledge of all the countries in Europe at all periods. Sound familiar? If that wasn't enough, Vandam goes on to write that, like Saint Germain, Major Fraser had the appearance of a man between 40 and 50, of middle height and strongly built. Major Fraser astonished the Parisian court, much like the Count had years earlier, claiming to have personally known a whole host of historical figures from Emperor Nero to Dante. But then he disappeared without a trace. Could he possibly be the same Major?
Someone could totally pick up this thread if they were like a history buff and did like some autodidact. Obviously, if you went to university and stuff, you're not going to be able to. But someone could pick up the Saint Germain character and continue the legacy to be like, yeah, I'm immortal. Somebody needs to, actually. Oh.
Major James Fraser, who
Sorry, I'm
in
yawning.
1820 published an account of his journey in the Himalayas in which he said he had reached Gangotri, the source of the most sacred river, and bathed in the source of the Jumna River. In the last decade of the 18th century, the Count of Saint Germain confided his future plans to his...
Look, you can see that that's Forest.
Of the 18th century,
Right there.
the Count of Saint
Look
Germain...
at that. That's Forest. Let's compare. We'll use that picture. So, there's Saint Germain, right? And here's Forest Valkai. Oh, hold on, not that one. Let's do this one because it's bigger. Ah! Shut up, Lucy and Aurelius. We're not ready for you yet. Okay, Saint Germain, Forest Valkai, right? Saint Germain, Forest Valkai. Saint Germain, Forest Valkai. Did you get it? I'm not saying it's true, but I'm just pointing out the resemblance.
Germain confided his future plans to his Austrian friend, author Franz Graefer. In Graefer's book Kleine Wiener Memoiren from 1843, he writes that the Count told him, "Toward the end of this century, I shall disappear out of Europe and betake myself to the region of the Himalayas." And, as if you weren't weirded out enough already, things are about to get straight up mystical. We may never know what really happened to Major Fraser, but Saint Germain's name found relevance.
I'm ready to get mystical. That's what this show's all about. We like when you get mystical.
Once again between 1880 and 1900, when the famed mystic Helena Blavatsky claimed that he was still alive and working towards the spiritual development of the West. Blavatsky was a Russian philosopher and author who co-founded the Theosophical Society.
Oh my gosh, and T.S. Christine Slays, are you in the Discord for the transpositions? You might want to join the transpositions Discord. Someone drop a transpositions Discord link out there, would ya? For the server. A lot of good people over there, including a lot of Lionhost actually. Arden's there. I think Lux is not there anymore, but Ben's there. Yeah, Josie. Okay.
In 1875, and gained an international following as the leading theoretician of theosophy.
Theoretician. Let's find out what a theoretician means. Theoretician. A person who forms, develops, and studies theoretical framework of a subject. So, I am a cryptozoological theoretician. I'm here for it.
Theosophy is an occult movement which centers around a belief in spiritual reality and that direct contact with such a reality.
Thank you, PC. I like flirting.
Can be reached through intuition, meditation.
I am a whore.
Revelation, or some other state transcending normal human consciousness. In the 1870s, Blavatsky described a group of enlightened beings she called the Masters of Ancient Wisdom. Unlike ascended...
Today, we don't have Masters of Ancient Wisdom. We have syphilis. That's for you, BB. It was an inside joke, sorry.
Masters, a similar theosophical group of masters, disembodied and living in higher realms like saints or angels. The Masters of Ancient Wisdom are physically incarnated in mortal bodies. As one of these so-called masters, Saint Germain is believed by theosophists to have many magical powers, such as the ability to teleport, levitate, and even walk through walls.
When has he been reported to do any of this shit? More Harry Potter nonsense. Fuck you, Rowling.
It may seem like a load of hocus pocus, but this photograph, taken in Adyar, India, appears to prove that Blavatsky did indeed know the Count, or at least someone claiming to be him. While Blavatsky sits front and center, the accompanying caption reads that the men standing behind her from left to right are Lord Cthulhu, Lord Moira, and, you guessed it, Lord Saint Germain. According to theosophical beliefs, the Count of Saint Germain...
But anybody can claim to be Saint Germain, right? It's not like there's a blood test where they're going to be like, if you're Saint Germain, then how come you don't have orange blood?
Is said to have adopted various alter egos, as well as numerous incarnations throughout his lifetime, including some of history's greatest geniuses and most iconic figures.
Is he going to be Tesla? Oh, here we go. All right. So, where are my Bible fans at? Where my Bible stands at? I'm a Bible fan. I love biblical mythology. Because we're about to get biblical up in here. Who wants to get biblical with this fella right here? Because we're about to find out.
Believe him to be Cartaphilus, the legendary wandering Jew who mocked Jesus on the way to his crucifixion on Good Friday, cursed with eternal life and destined to walk the earth until the end of days. Others think Saint Germain was once King Arthur's legendary...
So, the wandering Jew, right? The wandering Jew is Saint Germain. He's also the wizard Merlin.
...aide Merlin the Magician, who supposedly lived from about the year 540 to August 584. You may think Merlin is simply a myth, but according to author John Matthews, who published a book called Merlin, Shaman, Prophet, Magician, there's actually more evidence to support the existence of Merlin in the 5th and 6th centuries, formerly known as Mirden, than there is of Arthur himself. Could it be possible that the world's...
Yeah, because Merlin was, as from what I understand, I used to be a neo-pagan, so I did like I don't want to call it a dissertation, but like a research project on him as part of our little summer project that we were doing, like his origins and stuff. And he's based on a lot of different druidic leaders of various regions. Multiple stories of these different leaders are all funneled into being about Merlin. Of different Pictish people, early Roman folklore, and also even folklore from Ireland and Avalon. So he has there's a lot of roots to Merlin. Like, you talk about mythicism. Here we go. Can we do some Merlin mythicism instead of Jesus mythicism? Jesus mythicism gets boring. Merlin did like magic and shit. I guess Jesus did magic too, but yeah.
most famous wizard was still dabbling in magic and alchemy centuries later in the Parisian court of Versailles rather than at Camelot. Dr. Raymond Bernard's book, The Great Secret, Count Saint Germain, purports that Saint Germain was actually the 17th century's famous statesman scientist Sir Francis Bacon by birth, and later authored the complete plays.
Francis Bacon, the Francis Bacon, who was also an alchemist that we talked about before, and he's going to come up again in another topic I have set up to drop onto the polls today. But we'll get to that later. I'm glad we were able to.
Attributed to William Shakespeare.
Oh, wait, that's not even going to be on this poll. It's going to be on the Week in Weird poll.
According to the Ascended Master's teachings of Theosophy, Francis Bacon made it appear that he died on Easter Sunday on April 9th, 1626, and even attended his own funeral in disguise. This version of events also states
showed up to your funeral wearing like a domino mask, though.
The Count of Saint Germain attained his immortality and physical ascension through means of alchemy on the 1st of May, 1684, at which time Francis Bacon adopted the new name Saint Germain. Other variations of the Ascended Master teachings go even further to suggest that Saint Germain was, at some point, also incarnated as important figures such as Greek philosopher Plato.
There is conspiracy that Francis Bacon did write Shakespeare's plays. There's a conspiracy theory about that, Kip. Did you know that, or were you just throwing that out because of the collar? Because that's for real. That's a for real conspiracy. Is that some or all of the works attributed to William Shakespeare were actually written by Francis Bacon? Is a conspiracy? I shit you not. You have a sexy leather Catwoman mask? Hot.
And Italian explorer and navigator Christopher Columbus, although these are arguably not as universally accepted as some of the other figures. The most recent appearance of the Count of Saint Germain was
We are going to the El Paso protest this afternoon. It's going to be hot as hell. It's already heat advisory in effect. What's the temperature right now? Let me see. It's already 87, right? And it's not even 10 o'clock yet. It'll be 95 degrees before noon easily.
was in 1972 in Paris, when a man named Richard Chanfray announced he was the legendary Count. Chanfray was a public figure whose career in magic began in a Parisian theater, where he was announced as the man who could transmute lead into gold. He quickly became rich and famous through his exploits, giving divinations and psychic readings to various celebrities, and making a name for himself through his outlandish claims.
He is kind of good looking too. I think that's probably what he had going for him. Most stage musicians are though, like really handsome men. Not all of them, but the ones that find success.
Like the Count, Chanfray attributed his superhuman abilities to the art of alchemy. In fact, he even appeared on French television to prove his claim by turning lead into gold on a camp stove in front of the cameras. In the demonstration, he dips the end of some lead wire into projection powder, aka the elusive philosopher's stone, and returns it to the crucible to be heated. Once heated, it is removed from the stove and cooled by dropping it in water. Chanfray then opens the crucible and presents the wire, which has now turned a vibrant yellow, declaring that it has been turned to gold. Following the demonstration, the metal was allegedly appraised by experts and found to be gold.
Sounds like maybe there was some kind of switcheroo in the dipping it in the powder would be my expectation.
The lead wire had been provided by the TV crew, while Chanfray brought the crucible as well as the philosopher's stone. As well as observing the process firsthand, the crew claimed to have examined all the equipment and concluded that no special effects had been used. Of course, there are many who still believe Chanfray.
Maybe we have to delve deeper into the philosopher's stone too at some point. Would you guys be interested in talking about the philosopher's stone? Let me know.
It was simply performing an elaborate magic trick, perhaps involving sleight of hand. Although the transmutation of base metal...
That's exactly what it was. From everything I'm hearing here, it sounds like they gave him the ability to bring his own stuff in, and he brought in a little thing and put the wire in it and then took the wire back out. It's a very easy place to switch it out for the other one.
Metals such as lead into gold had certainly become a possibility by the dawn of the 20th century. It usually requires a particle accelerator and a vast supply of energy to produce even the smallest amount of gold, not a mere camp stove and a pinch of supposed magical powder. Transmutation wasn't Chanfray's only claim to being Saint Germain. In fact, he supposedly had a whole host of abilities, which made him just as extraordinary as the Immortal Count.
This guy's the fake Count, though, because we all know Forrest Falcai is the real Count Saint Germain.
When invited to old palaces or castles, Chanfray claimed to have been there before in a past life. He would even demonstrate this by...
It rained here once. The other day. Last week. It doesn't rain here, like, ever, because I'm in the desert. But it did rain. It was exciting. We all went out and sit outside and enjoyed it. Because it's been so long. And it'll sprinkle every now and then, but it only rains for like 2 or 3 minutes, and it doesn't even amount to anything before it bakes off. But yeah, a couple days ago, we had some pretty good rain.
By explaining the layout of the house, providing the location of specifics like the location of the stairs, and
Love you, PC.
identifying secret passages. Of course, it has also been
El Paso.
suggested that Chanfray studied the blueprints of these buildings, which may have been available to the public before visiting them. Spanish TV reporter Jose Maria Inigo also claimed to have visited Chanfray's house, where he witnessed him revive a dog from the dead.
That's freaking creepy. Dude has a dead dog in his house. I'd be more concerned about that.
According to Inigo, Chanfray threw some projection powder over the dog's corpse, which, after a few spasmodic movements, arose and walked a few steps before falling dead again. Unfortunately, there's no photographic evidence to back these claims up, but at the very least, it's a pretty alarming anecdote which aligns with the assumed magical powders of the Count of Saint Germain. But if you want to quiz Chanfrey further on the particulars of his reincarnation as the mystical count, you'll have little luck, because he passed away in 1983.
He passed away in 1983, and then I was born in 1983, so do with that information what you will.
Although some might find it hard to believe that the Count of Saint Germain was really reincarnated as various different figures throughout history, the concept itself is not as fantastical as it might seem.
Are you implying that Bernie Sanders is Saint Germain? I know that may not be, I mean, they're probably just like his confused face, they're memeing, but it seems like it's implying that Bernie Sanders is Saint Germain.
In fact, the selection of the Dalai Lama and Panchen Lamas, the head monks of Tibetan Buddhism, relies heavily on the theory of reincarnation. You see, when the current Lama is nearing the end of his life, he speaks of the area where he will be reincarnated next. His followers will then arrive at that location with personal items belonging to the spiritual leader, and will ask the supposed next in line to identify them. If reincarnation has been such an integral part of the Buddhist religion and the Dalai Lama...
So all you need to know is to know a bit about the guy, right? If you know about the guy and his stuff, like you go see his stuff when he's alive and see what kind of stuff he has, you can be the next Lama.
Lama lineage spanning back centuries. Is it too bold to assume that the Count of Saint Germain, as the master of ancient wisdom, relied on a similar concept? Since Richard Chanfrey's death, no one has claimed to be the Count of Saint Germain. It would seem that, having lived in the full blaze of publicity for so many centuries, this extraordinary man has simply vanished. Perhaps the immortal Count still walks among us, and is already involved in some of the most important affairs in modern history, waiting to reveal his true identity. Who was this mystical man who beguiled some of the greatest figures in history with his natural charm?
No, I don't speak Spanish. No. Most of my friends do, though. I'm like the weird one out. I'm also a full head taller than most people around here, which is kind of funny. This big bumbling Northern European woman in this beautiful desert with all these lovely Latin people with their caramel skin and, you know, their dark almond eyes. Oh, yeah, beautiful. There's beautiful people all around here. I love this city. I'll be sad to leave it when I leave.
Worldly knowledge and extraordinary talents. Was he really a successful alchemist who found the secret of eternal life? Was he a mystical master of ancient wisdom, destined to be reincarnated time and time again? Perhaps, as some of the more outlandish theories suggested,
stay safe, John.
He was actually a time traveler, a fallen angel, a lone alien, or even a handsome vampire. Of course, we could also speculate that maybe he was just a highly intelligent man whose reputation became the stuff of fantastic legend. When it comes to the Count of Saint Germain, it seems like there are still more questions than answers, but if this marvelous history is anything to go by, we may not have seen the last of him yet. What do you make of the story of the Count of Saint Germain?
What do you make of the story of the Count of Saint Germain, the immortal Count? Do you think that he was Francis Bacon? Do you think he's Forrest Valkai? Yeah. Let us know in the comments down below. And please remember to be kind, take care, and we will see you next time. All right, live from the Hive audience. You know the drill. Don't go anywhere. We're not done yet. We are not done yet, although we are wrapping up Cryptic Corner. We still have the Weekend Weird to come. Yeah, vampire. I like that. All right, but I'm going to take an intermission. I got to go potty and all that good stuff. I'm going to go grab something to drink. And I will be back with you momentarily. In the meantime, I think I have new intermission for this second section here too. So please enjoy. All right, I will be back momentarily. Thank you, Ember.
Koalas in the rain, koalas in the rain. No fucks given. Koalas in the rain, koalas in the get 'em. Koala, koala, koalas in the rain. Koalas in the rain. No fucks given. Koala, koala.
Yeah, poor little thing was kicked out of the tree. You can come to our tree. Yeah, come to our tree. Poor little thing. There's plenty of trees. Come on. You're a meanie.
Whew. Sorry, it took me a minute to get back. Oh, I'm drinking some of this Pepsi Zero, and it went down wrong. So I'm like, while you guys were waiting. So that's what I was doing while I was playing banjo on the screen. So I was actually out here dying, but I digress. Welcome to our Week in Weird. Today, we are visiting one of my favorite conspiracies, which is the Tartaria conspiracy. Because the Tartaria conspiracy comes with so much fun stuff to unpack with it. You got basic flat Earth kind of nonsense with ice wall and giants and all. There's so much. You got geocentrism. You got lands beyond the wall. You have mud flood. You have buried cities. You have star forts. You have Cabbage Patch Kids. You have alchemy, which we just talked about a little bit in the previous segment about Saint Germain. There's so much going on. So much going on in the Tartaria conspiracy that you don't even know where to start, where to end, where it all begins even. It's crazy. You got orphan trains and you have forbidden history and ancient orders. And speaking of ancient orders, there's an ancient order of knights. You may notice, or you may see, I don't know if you noticed, this guy right here. It's our Knight of Tartaria. So Tartaria was guarded by knights, apparently. But I'm not going to tell it alone, because one of the foremost experts on Tartaria is Lucius Aurelian. And they are going to break down the secrets of Tartaria. And I believe if you do like Tartaria too, go watch Bad Science Sunday. Was it last week? I think it was last week that they did Tartaria topic. Anyway, you can drop a link for that, Maya, if you want to send people over to Bad Science Sunday to check that one out. They talked about Tartaria on Bad Science Sunday recently as well. But Lucius Aurelian has tons of videos on Tartaria and all its stuff in history. And look at this. I mean, hopefully this gives you an idea of what we're doing here. And how it's all connected to this wild conspiracy that overarches all of existence. And there was once an ancient empire called Tartaria, etc., etc. But let's get right into it. Let's get into those lovely knights.
Old world architect. It was a time of chaos when the ancient enemy had one goal in mind: to destroy the remaining cities and to destroy the people of Tartaria, of the Fourth Era civilization that preceded ours, once and for all. This final conflict.
Well, the Tartarian Empire was right before the last reset. Now, there's different schools of thought on when the last reset was. Some people will say the last reset was really recent, like is in like the 1930s, like post World War II. I guess it'd be 1940s, World War II time frame. Anyway, but the most Tartarian scholars go with 1776, right? The founding of the U.S. was the turnover from the last reset. And everything before that is a fake history that's been made up to cover the sins of the past and, what led to the mud floods and everything that covered the world. But like cities in the New World, like big cities too, like Chicago, LA, New York, Boston, Dallas, they were not built in modern times. They were dug out of the mud flood. Last week we talked about Tartaria how Tartaria affected the Mormons. There you go. Yeah, Zarahemla. There's another one of them big cities.
Five Eras theory, we posit that there were several civilizations that preceded our own. There may have been 4, there may have been 5. These civilizations were destroyed by what we consider hard resets. What became of the defense forces of these civilizations, those charged with its defense? Was it lost forever, or was there some trace of them?
I really hope these knights had like lightsabers and Iron Man armor. That's what I want. I want them flying around with Iron Man armor, swinging lightsabers around. Fuck yeah.
Some lineage that continues to this day. Join us for today's exploration as we seek to answer the questions of what happened to Tartaria's defense forces. Did they survive? The compelling mystery of what became of the defense forces of Tartaria is something that we've looked into before. But today we're going to be examining the account of the monastic military orders of the Middle Ages.
There we go.
We'll be looking at the
Let's see who we got here. We have the Knights of Santiago, the Teutonic Knights. We got the Knights of Hospitaller, the Order of the Holy Sepulchre, and of course, the ever-present Knights Templar, which is, a whole bag of worms unto itself outside of Tartaria that we'll have to broach at some point. But that's the good thing about being a professional woo debunker, is that I'll never run out of stuff to talk about.
Examining the account of the monastic military orders of the Middle Ages. We'll be looking at the Knights of Santiago subsequently when we explore the Iberian Peninsula. We begin by examining the Teutonic Order. Interestingly enough, all these military orders that we're examining were affiliated with the
I would love to come to Kentucky. Someone would have to pay my way, though. I'm kind of broke right now. So, yeah. I would love to come to your protest, but it was not my budget. I'd love to go to NanaCon, too. That'd be nice, but I's a broke bitch.
Catholic Church, and they followed the First Crusade, the military effort to reconquer Jerusalem from the Saracens at the time, according to the official history. All of these military orders then rose afterwards, and we examine the Teutonic Knights because they are affiliated with the German Order of St. Mary, interestingly enough. And all these military orders were originally founded, and yes, that word was used, in order to protect...
Oh, Sumami, I'm glad you made it here before we got to the Forbidden History segment of the show. I know how much you love this nonsense. Yeah, somebody tell Pangbird me and Bree will open bombs if, yeah. If they pay for a fight. Yeah, I will flash my trans titties at Ken Ham himself if someone pays my way.
The pilgrims that were coming from Europe to visit the Holy Land in Jerusalem. At least that was their ostensible purpose. And when we examine each of these military orders, we find that there are many incredible and what we would define as old world structures that are affiliated or attributed to these military orders. It's rather intriguing, though, to think that there was a time, beginning with the Teutonic Knights, that the church would actually sanction a military order, an almost independent military order that had the permission and even a charter from the church to conduct military operations.
That's what the Crusades and shit were all about, too. The church really helped Europe refine its warfare techniques, right? Because the church could afford to give their these warriors the finest weapons and armor and stuff like that, and horses and equipment, and so just like a small battalion of these Teutonic Knights could take on a whole unit by themselves, just because they were so heavily armored, or so well equipped, and so well trained. But money can buy you an elite fighting force. It's always been that way. Like, you can think of these guys as the early BlackRock.
And indeed, the Teutonic Knights, despite being founded in what is today the Middle East, operated extensively within Europe. And there were several chapters, several members, and several different hierarchies concerning the Teutonic Knights. It's also intriguing to think of this Germanic culture that existed even before Germany was a nation. The Teutonic Knights were most...
You going to a protest today, too? Sounds like everybody's going to a protest.
Operational in Prussia. And indeed, many of the Grand Masters sought permission from the Church and even from the Holy Roman Empire, that was de facto Germany at that time, although really a collection of loose kingdoms, to conduct this crusade, to convert the pagans of Prussia to Catholicism. And indeed, that's the recurring theme that we have with these military orders, although they have different specific histories. Now, do we take the history at face value, or is it possible that there is an entirely...
Tartaria never takes history at face value. Tartaria always digs beneath the mud and finds the Cabbage Patch roots. Gotta go get lobster for your mac and cheese. All right, you be well, John.
Different account with these military orders. Were the Teutonic Knights really knights that just simply came from what is today Germany, even though it was the Holy Roman Empire at that time? Or do they have a very different origin? Indeed, they continued campaigning in what is today Eastern Europe until they were defeated in what is historically known as the Battle of Tannenberg, and it has many other names to it, in which case a alliance of Polish and Lithuanian forces defeated the Teutonic Knights, and eventually their financial ruin came about. The order did survive, and
So, and it's also another way to think about these is they were sort of like a mafia style fighting force too, or mercenaries to some extent, but they were also like, hey, we're not all the orders, but the Teutonic Knights especially we're like, hey, nice little nation you got here, nice little village, nice city you got here. It would be a shame if something bad happened to it. I bet you need some order of knights to protect it, and that you want to pay for protection, right? I mean, that's basically a tale as old as time. That's what ironically enough, that's what Trump's pulling with, or tried to pull with Zelensky. Nice country you got here. It'd be a shame if it were to lose its funding for defense.
as stated before, there are many structures that are attributed to it. But what's intriguing is that the order survived and converted to a holy order alone in the early 1800s. Ah yes, once again, something else attributed to the 1800s. And here in this image we see the order campaigning for approval from the Holy Roman Empire to begin to convert the pagans of Prussia at that time to Catholicism. And that's the historical account of it. The order was defeated in the Battle of Tannenberg, and over time their power waned. But again, it's intriguing to think of this concept from the official history of a military order that was charged to conduct their own operations and given autonomy and independence to do so. Apparently, as long as they were doing so in the name of the church.
Yeah,
it's also
as long as you do it for Jesus. As long as you crusade for Jesus, you're all right. Don't crusade for any of these other pagan gods, though.
interesting when you think about the stated reason, or at least the historically agreed upon reason for the Crusades being started.
I'm honestly wondering if native atheists, I'm wondering if John's lobsters are found under rocks in the creek in his backyard. So those are the types of lobsters I associate with John, not like the ones you catch off the coast of Maine.
There's also many prominent politicians, such as the former Chancellor of West Germany, who were honorary members of the current Teutonic Order. Of course, that's in its present state.
And of course, now it's going to become like an order like the Freemasons, right? Where these guys aren't really soldiers anymore. It's an honorary knighthood.
What else we'll look at is how these particular orders evolved. There's also the mystery of Malbork Castle, built sometime between 1274 and 1406 in what is today Poland. This was considered
in the accepted timeline, though. Come on, guys, we know better than that.
Grand fortress of the Teutonic Knights. And of course, records don't indicate who actually built it. Scholars and historians actually have to extrapolate from financial statements and what little historical record we have to indicate
not anything interesting, T.S. Christine.
That the Teutonic Knights were even the ones who built this incredible structure. And it should be noted that it is the largest castle by area in the world. What else would it be? And it's also a UNESCO World Heritage Site. But for the longest time, it was the main base of operations and the headquarters of this order, if you will, in Europe. And looking closely at this castle, we'll see that there are many impressive signs of old world architecture. There's also very unique and interesting symbols. Now, of course, we could say that these symbols could all be stated to be the heraldry of the Teutonic Order.
They're occult symbols to summon. That'd be so cool. I thought it's some fiction. Okay, behind these occult symbols in this old building, right? And you touch them in a certain order or whatever. And then the the Tartarian knight armor flies to you like Iron Man, right? And then a sword pops up out of the stone, and when you grab it, it glows like a lightsaber. Yes, I'm here for it. I'm here for it. This is headcanon now for how the Knights of Tartaria operated. Oh, my education I had. I went to a community college and became an electrician. And Then I worked at a company that sent me to welding school, so I'm a certified welder too. So it's a lot of tradesman stuff. Is the kind of things that I'm equipped to do. I also have my my DCS, which is was it a DDS, which is like a CNA for developmentally disabled, and and I am certified as a pharmacy tech in Illinois, Texas, New Mexico, and Oklahoma. Oh, and Montana too, but why can I ever go to Montana? I've wore many hats over my life, both in and out of the closet. Most of that labor stuff was when I was still in the closet. I probably wouldn't have done it if I had been out of the closet, but I was expected. You have a warrant for your arrest? Yeah, I've actually been talking to Byron about showing him some welding stuff. Because, yeah, they're interested in learning a trade. My dad was a woodworker, so I know some woodworking stuff too. But
order at that time in the Middle Ages, but when you look a little bit more closely, you see that there tends to be more symbols. You also see a very interesting architecture behind this particular structure. This castle, this fortress, this citadel, whatever you want to call it, seems to have many incredible geometrically precise construction techniques and details on the exterior and the interior. Indeed, you could be forgiven for thinking that this is a structure that was actually constructed in the 1800s, especially with all the elaborate brickwork. And it is rather peculiar that...
Yeah, Ember is a hat expert.
Much like many other structures, they do actually admit, they being historians and scholars, that there is no written record of who actually built this very impressive castle. There is no shortage of statues and other figures affiliated with it that give us the impression that, yes, this was...
And if you push a button, the statues come to life and defend the building. Hell yeah, do it. Let's run with that.
Very much a castle of the Teutonic Knights, and then subsequently given to Poland after the defeat in the Battle of Tannenberg. But what's the true account behind it? Was this really a structure that was built by this monastic military order? Or is there something else behind it? Is it possible that instead of this military order being some order that was founded in the Middle East, that originally its origin was in what is...
My most important credentials are my cryptozoology credentials. I'm the world's leading cryptozoologist. And I have experience I'm an experienced paranormal researcher. But I'm jaded now because my paranormal research turned up goose egg, and I want to expose it all so people start looking at the world through a more skeptical lens, which is what inspires this show.
Today, Europe. That quite possibly it was a surviving military force or even a particular military unit that happened to be operating within this area when the reset happened. And that this structure that they were operating in, this very impressive castle, that is today a UNESCO World Heritage Site, actually has a very different
I like that art
origin.
on the ceiling.
That it was...
That's beautiful. There's a unicorns, or two unicorns. There's a brown one and a blue one. And there's some, are those cockatrice?
Was in fact either their headquarters of their unit or possibly some structure that survived the reset and then this military unit decided to inhabit. And this is where their operations began. Now granted, this is speculation and it's theory, but once again, what makes more sense?
I've honestly considered going to one of those woo universities and getting a woo degree so I can like troll people like Kent Hovind and stuff and be like, you might have your divinity degree from wherever, but I have my degree in parapsychology from, St. Germain University. Maybe I'll found my own woo university and start giving out Certificates. Do you want a certificate in mythicism?
Are we to simply accept the official historical account that this very elaborate spiral stairway was constructed by someone unknown who was in the employ of the Teutonic Knights during a time frame when such constructions were very difficult? Indeed, we haven't really even entered the Renaissance. This castle
I remember a weird episode of Unsolved Mysteries about that too. It's like, oh, they built this spiral staircase, and I'm like, I still don't, to this day, don't understand what was so special about it. I mean, it's a staircase. It spirals.
has no shortage of very impressive artifacts.
The staircases I like are the ones in the woods that you find in creepypastas, that just a staircase out in the woods, and if you go up it, you never seen again. I love those creepypastas.
And what's the true account within these artifacts?
Yes.
We'll have to do a follow-up exploration examining many of these.
I'm not gonna call it the Hive a Hive diploma though. I'm gonna not associate it with me. I'm not Trump. If I'm gonna run a grift, I'm gonna distance myself from it and stand on the sidelines and watch it mill in money. Yeah, it's gonna be. You look into them eyes. Yeah, my eyes are freaking. There you go, babe. But good morning. But I would do something like Saint Germain University would be a good idea for it, a good name for it. It actually does sound like something that like at a glance would be legit. Yeah, I posted a thing that asked like, what even color are my eyes? Because it depends on what color I'm wearing. They're gray, they're green, they're hazel. My eyes are technically they're hazel. Hazel green might be a better way to describe them. They do turn blue, but only when I wear certain colors.
Artifacts that still survive in these incredible cathedrals and these castles. And indeed, the surrounding towns around this...
Your eyes are dark chocolate, sweetie. I ain't listening to that, Sumami. Dark chocolate caramel, maybe? Because there's a little bit of that lighter golden color in your eyes, too, sweetheart. I've looked into your eyes. I also have the Gateway Institute for those familiar with Rabbit's lore. If we're counting correspondence courses, I am a private investigator. It doesn't take much to pass those open book tests that are based on no expertise, right? Correspondence courses. Yeah. It's like I went to trade school to do like the electrician and welding stuff. But like the welding stuff, most of that I learned on site and on the job. I knew how to weld before I started school. It was just basically passing all the exams and doing the welding test, which was no problem because I'd been doing it for years before that as a welding apprentice to my then father-in-law.
This castle in Poland are just as impressive, showing advanced and detailed architecture, something that we don't really see attempted today. Of course, we have the usual reasons for why this is. We lack funds, there's safety standards, and it just doesn't make sense to construct buildings like this that have an artistic appeal. It makes more sense to build things that are simply functional. And those may all be true. But why is it we constantly see this pattern repeated everywhere we go? And we're also going to have to do a follow-up exploration of Poland, in addition to our explorations that are planned for the Iberian Peninsula. There are many incredible structures that we haven't looked at yet. And whether it's in Poland or Spain or examining the accounts of these castles, we do see the same precision, the same detailing.
Oh my gosh, this place has basement windows. Tartaria confirmed. I don't know if you all know this about Tartaria, but anytime that you see windows, basement windows, it means that this is a Tartarian building dug out of the mud flood, and this used to be the first floor because ancient people didn't have basements or something.
Architecture, Constructed at a time when there was no mechanization, there was no motorization, logistics were very problematic. And even though they had more time in Europe, at least according to the official history, there are many details of it that seem to defy the ability of the logistics available at the time to explain. Indeed, you look at the foundation stones of this particular tower and the arrangement of the blocks over the door, and we've seen these patterns before. Many
Mason?
of the great forts in the United States and across the Caribbean and many other areas of the land. What was the real purpose behind this tower? Was this yet another defensive tower? And are we really to accept that this impressive castle of Malbork was constructed simply for defensive reasons? There's many artistic elements within it.
They're to look pretty.
Why would a monastic military order, charged in the middle of conquering, or subduing, however you want to say it, these Prussian pagans that were in existence at the time, according to the official historical account, want to build a castle that has such devotions to both art and even a religious fervor to it? Well, the religious fervor is easily explained, and of course we even have cannons in the courtyard of this castle. Ah yes, where do we go without our wonderful cannons? And look at the courtyard and the stones that's actually made up. Looking at elsewhere in the interior,
Like, they wanted to make a nice castle to show off how rich and powerful they were. It's not like they hand built this themselves. They hired contractors to do it. So, I mean, they'd have hired the best.
we'll see the examples of arches
Again, the church is rich, like super rich.
and columns, and even an impressive tiled floor to go along with all the bricks. Again, one could be forgiven
Fox, you mean your Tartarian cottage?
for mistaking this incredible castle for being built in the 1800s. And once again, we see that very unique and impressive checkerboard floor. So why are we focusing on this one particular structure?
Because it's a beautiful building, I guess. It looks amazing. There's a lot of artisans put a lot of love into creating this castle.
According to the official history, we don't know who actually built it. And we certainly know that Gordon Ramsay wasn't around to design and architect this impressive kitchen, although they certainly must have had a cook like him who could prepare their fine meals. It's also interesting.
That would have been amazing to work in a kitchen like that back then, though. I mean, most people had, like, the area around their fireplace, right? And having a nice big kitchen like this, yeah.
When we think about the fact that the monastic military orders were all founded on the principle of piety, but also chastity, and finally, poverty. And yet, the remains of these military orders suggest anything but poverty. They seem to be very materially well off. Again, looking at the official historical account. But if we can...
We are covering a pastor who thinks Ken Ham is doing great research. Saturday Night at the Atheist. Okay. If I ever sell the place, I'm going to list it as a Tartarian cottage. That is going to up the value.
Consider
Absolutely.
other theories of their origin. If we consider the fact that these actually were established units, or at least the successors of established units of the defense forces of Tartaria,
The Defense Forces of Tartaria.
then suddenly we have an entirely different explanation that makes a lot more sense. We have the existence in the...
Oh yeah, those are modern bricks. Like, they're not those. At least a lot of those bricks are modern bricks. They look like modern bricks to me. I mean, I'm not a mason or anything, but that's 100% church money built, right? Yeah, you can tell when someone was built by the church because it's freaking. They have artists build it, basically.
presence of these structures with their fine geometric precision, who no doubt had more advanced capabilities of construction, and undoubtedly had a very advanced logistical system. It's that advanced logistical system that we oftentimes
I love these windows. My friend Sandy does stained glass windows.
don't even consider, and people who defend the mainstream never even address. Now, it's not to say that it could not have been completed or done, as we're
The thing about the church, you say that about, yeah, the only people who had money like that back in the day were the church and royalty. They were the same people. Like, if you were like the third son of a king or something like that, second son of a king, you would join or become part of the church. So you'd like have your family in control of the church and the state, and then you could really fleece those people for them dollars. Not all the time. That did happen a lot. A lot of non-direct lineage members of the royal family became were high up in the church. And the church was, built upon that. Multiple royal families across Europe,
we're told in the official historical account.
Which is ironically, they'd also change their names so that they wouldn't necessarily be directly associated with their family. So it would be like they trying to covertly cover their nepotism. It's like, oh, that's Cardinal Joseph, not my brother Stephen the Third. What are you talking about?
However, looking at things objectively, it seems very unlikely that given the logistical capabilities at the time, they could have actually even assembled all of these construction materials. There's also the fact that this impressive castle, if it is indeed hundreds of years old, and for all we know it could be much older.
For anybody who's interested in an update, Henry is currently 21 pounds. Him a big boy.
Is still standing to this day. And how many structures are we building now that will still be standing even 100 years from now? I'll leave that question to you. Looking elsewhere in the details of the castle, we see many icons and symbols that we...
Sumami's she's ruining the mystique with her, research and timelines. That's Sumami, that's if you believe the mainstream narrative, the history books present as how this happened. This was dug out of the mud flood. It wasn't built in the 20th century or restored. It was dug out. Don't you know? Henry is Dr. Ben's dog. He's a border collie pit bull husky mix. And he's really rambunctious. You might just heard him bark. I don't know. I heard him bark. It's not bad. I don't mind him barking. He's cutie pie.
We've seen in other locations, and of course not just in Germany or Poland. Poland is also quite interesting as a nation because of its rather unique status, and even looking in more recent history with things that develop with Poland.
Sumami, it seems like you just haven't been watching enough Bad Science Sunday, or Live from the Hive for that matter. Otherwise you would understand that the history as you were taught in school, at university and such is not real. Tartaria.
Poland concerning the Second World War. But looking across the cathedrals and in the castle, you'll see that there are many design elements that are overlapping with other incredible structures that we've looked at. I'm trying to imagine a limited group of Teutonic knights walking through this impressive castle. Who exactly did build it, if we take the historical account at face value? Where did they find these impressive architects? And even the architect...
I assume that when you fall asleep, that you have some sort of nest up in an upper corner somewhere in your apartment that you crawl into and curl up. That's just that. That's my headcanon.
Who are not documented at all in this particular account, who actually built it. And how did they go about building it?
I like that door.
And what was its true intention and purpose?
What's up with this bright colors? This is almost rainbow colored. You got reds and yellows and blue, purple, green. Yeah, every color of the rainbow here except for, well, there's a little bit of yellow over here. What's up with that, though?
Because it seems rather hard to believe that it was simply constructed for defensive purposes. Indeed, it seems to have...
They did worship stuff there, too. They lived there. They trained there. It was more than just defensive. Yeah.
Have many other uses as an overall structure. And no doubt it did. And some of these artifacts, which we can of course attribute to the religious foundation of the Catholicism of these military...
Now, if you don't know, Catholicism is who was the Catholic Church is who's responsible for the last reset. Because Jesus in Tartaria, Jesus already came back in the last cycle, but the Catholic Church is trying to cover it up and make us think that he's going to come back, that he still hasn't come back.
Orders. Is it possible that there's another explanation for the origin of these unique artifacts? And indeed, looking elsewhere across the nearby communities in Poland, we do see other great towers with elaborate brickwork and windows within them. Yes, of course, you could say that these are for defensive
Not windows.
purposes, but then you look elsewhere across the town and you see a little bit more of an artistic flair. You see the same design elements that we've seen in other places that we've looked at. Now, there are many defenders of the mainstream narrative who will simply say that this was merely medieval masonry construction. And I suppose the statues were just as easy to do at that time as well, because everybody lived so well during that time frame. Of course, there's always the conflicting account between how difficult things really were. When you look at nearby cathedrals to Malbork Castle, you'll also see a similarity in the...
He went to get his rabies shot today, if you're wondering why I was bringing up Henry stuff. This morning he had his first checkup since we've got him, getting his shots and getting weighed and everything.
Construction, and indeed the piety that seemed to be readily apparent, at least according to the official account. But looking at Malbork Castle, you can see that there's much more than just simply a defensive fortification in mind when it was constructed.
Bricks don't make very good defensive fortification to modern weaponry anyway. Bricks tend to crumble in on themselves, but if you fire a cannonball at them, that's a cannonball from this time period. That matters. These are it's an art style. I like it. Very Polish. I like the eyes right here. Do you see the eyes right there, and then right there? Yeah, it's watching you. Those are the eyes of Tartaria. Those are the Teutonic, or not the Teutonic. We're still in the Teutonic Knights, yeah.
There's elaborate constructions that show many arches, many geometric precision.
Bro winks hard to this castle for 5 minutes for over 10 minutes. This castle's really got...
And even decorations that endure to this day. Now I have to ask the question, in reality, how many times has this structure been renovated? What was its actual origin? And what are the purposes of these columns here? It's almost as though someone was trying to show what they could really do at that time. We also have the many statues and reliefs that are seen across the castle. And once again, we almost get the indication of something...
Yeah, don't get me wrong. These are gorgeous, beautiful buildings, doll. It's just... they're not, I mean, obviously dug out of the mud flood. The funny thing is like, you can't do that with brick, right? Have any of you all ever dug up like an old brick stone or brick walkway or brick wall or brick floor that had been covered in dirt for decades? And the bricks are like rounded and small. So, a mud flood dug out of the earth or clay, yeah. Red clay bricks are going to they do absorb water, right? Not bad, but they once they're baked, but you soak them. Yeah. He's peeing. Perfect pause. Don't forget to jiggle, sir. He's got a sword stuck in the ground while he takes a leak. Ah.
A bit more advanced than what we might expect to see, whether it's in the construction itself or what it's actually depicting. We, of course, have no shortage of old sketches or drawings of the castle and how it looked in its fullness of glory. It's quite intriguing to me that this castle managed to survive.
I mean, Notre Dame's one that comes to mind when you talk about these old buildings burning. I don't know why, but it thrilled me to see Notre Dame burn a couple years back, because the Catholic Church deserves it, I guess. I mean, I know it's a historical building and more, and has artistic and cultural significance and things like that, but yeah.
Survive 2 world wars and many other destructive events over time. And what exactly do these iron figures here in this courtyard represent?
Those do appear, Christine, those do appear in a lot of Tartaria stuff. Those, the Yemen and the Middle Eastern city skyscrapers, the old, like clay ones. They're not brick, I don't think. I think they're like, sort of like, I keep wanting to say terracotta. Stucco. Yeah, like a stucco skyscrapers. And they'll talk about those. And like, oh, look, ancient skyscrapers. How do you explain this? And it's like, yeah, these guys got dicks out. Look at them dicks on these guys. What the hell am I even looking at here? Is this the same castle?
And what exactly do these iron figures here in this courtyard represent? What exactly are they displaying from?
Why are their cocks removable? It looks like you grab the dick and move it off and pull it off. There's like a little square around it. What the actual fuck is going on here? These are crazy. Look at that.
From the era of the Teutonic Knights. Were they added later? Who really constructed them? And what are they really telling us? Are these the unfortunate...
He's zooming in on the wrong part. Zoom in on those cocks. I want to understand why they got the square around them.
Individuals that originally constructed the castle? What exactly is being displayed here? And by all means, let me know what you think in the comments.
They got squares around their heads, too.
Elsewhere in the castle,
but the squares around their genitals are what is most important, I think, at this point. Notre Dame burning.
We'll find more of the icons and symbols that we might be more expected to see, showing the armored knight on horseback.
Maya's doing the hokey pokey.
And oddly enough, showing the interesting headgear. Armored knight on horseback.
It does look kind of like a unicorn.
More expected to see, showing the armored knight on horseback. And oddly enough, showing the interesting headgear, which does endure to this day with the official uniform of these military orders. And naturally, we would have a depiction of a gargoyle or a demonic figure to be found in this castle. This pious castle that was constructed by a monastic military order. We go to the military order of the Order of Knights of the Hospital of St. John of Jerusalem.
Girl, I was like that about that plantation house burning too. I'm like, woo! Up in smoke. I don't know if that was jade or not. It didn't look like... Well, I mean, I guess it could have been. Not that one. This one. That does kind of look jade. Not sure, though.
Order of Knights of the Hospital of St. John of Jerusalem, or as they're more commonly known as the Knights Hospitaller. Founded in the early 1100s, as opposed to the Teutonic Knights who were founded in the later 1100s. And they even have as a secondary symbol the Great Maltese Cross. Of course, when we look at these symbols of these ancient military orders, and really we have to say they're ancient because by official history they're hundreds of years old, what's their origin? When we look at
historical, yeah, not by Tartarian standards, though. Come on now.
Depictions and accounts
Monkey! The order had monkeys. Which order are we on now? Knights of the Hospitaller. The Knights of the Hospitaller had menageries of monkeys and birds. Is that a badger?
Ancient military orders, and really we have to say they're ancient because by official history they're hundreds of years old. What's their origin?
Dogs.
When we look at depictions and accounts of the Knights Hospitaller, though, we tend to find some conflicting accounts. There's also the fact that the Knights...
They seem to love some fucking monkeys. I'm liking these guys. Any order of knights that has monkeys as part of their as their aesthetic, I'm gonna hang out with those guys.
Hospitaller was involved in several significant military campaigns. And even in this particular depiction, there's some rather odd figures. What exactly is going on here with these particular animals? And what are these Order's Grand Masters really doing? We have this depiction of one of the great knights of the Knights Hospitaller in a military campaign, but when we look down towards the bottom of it, we see a particular individual who appears to be suffering for some unknown reason. We have the military campaign, such as the Siege of Rhodes, in which the Knights Hospitaller managed to withstand a siege by the Ottoman Turks at that time, a siege in which they were vastly outnumbered. There's numerous other military confrontations that they were involved in. Now, once again, stepping back and looking at the greater picture, could it be possible that this Knights Hospitaller was yet another unit of the original defense forces of Tartaria that somehow survived?
Defend Tartaria to the last man. No. I like the rapier look that they got going on here, though. Rapier sword fighting is the sexiest kind of sword fighting. Although katana sword fighting, if choreographed properly, can be pretty epic too. I know choreographed is a cheat, but...
Indeed, many allusions to the Knights Hospitaller survive to this day, and they're also prominently active on Malta. Yes, Malta, that very unique and interesting island in the middle of the Mediterranean that we've explored before, with its incredible star forts, and of course they have a incredible...
So we did star forts. I think we did star forts, didn't we? Did we do star forts? No, I'm curious. We're going to find out. Nope, we did not. I think we talked about star forts on a different Tartaria video, though. So we have tons of Tartaria content. I should make a Tartaria playlist, honestly. We had Trees of Tartaria. Hans the Tartarian.
Bombard that they used to defend during one of the sieges from the Ottomans. It's also the classic underdog story that the...
I like this. It's like a giant pinball launcher.
Knights Hospitaller was
a bombard.
Able to withstand these sieges from these vast military forces that the Ottoman Empire was
Ooh,
to
that castle's
bring to bear
kind of
against
cool
it.
looking.
Of course, that's the official history.
No, there's no artistic flair on this one. It's defensive. This is a defensive castle. The location, the slope leading up to it, everything about this castle says it's made for defense. Like, it's made specifically so a force coming from this direction that we're looking at it from is going to have to fight uphill and then get stonewalled, literally, while they have all these parapets and stuff that they can fire out of every little window here. They can dump stuff out of these portholes here. You see these portholes here? If someone comes up to the wall, there can literally be like one person in here running back and forth, dumping hot oil, defeating a whole legion of troops down here. So this castle is some sick shit, right? You got archers all along the tops. You have cannons firing out of these windows too, or bombards, depending on the. Put a trebuchet on top. Yeah, launch some big stuff. Now I'm customizing it to my own liking. I'll shut up now.
Then, though, that these military orders, these descendants, or somehow connected to the lineage of Tartaria's original defense forces, had an entirely different purpose. And over time, after reset, they had to establish their own purpose. They either tried to survive against the forces of the reset, or they had to capitulate and operate within. There's also the interesting comparison, or even the opposite mentality, between the Knights Templar and the Knights Hospitaller, right down to the coloring and the red cross on black field and the red cross on white field. Does it symbolize something? Could there be a different account with these particular orders? Or does it once again show the entire dichotomy?
What if the Tartarian nation split and had a civil war. And there was the Hospitaller versus the Teutons, and then the Templar come in. And
The duality that seems to be a primary feature of our current civilization. When you look at the military efforts of the Knights Hospitaller, you will see that oftentimes it was many of these sieges that occurred within the Mediterranean. And oftentimes the valor of these knights were critical to retaining possessions within the Mediterranean. There's also the fact that there are current modern members and that this order survives to this day, and people who still wear its icons and its uniforms. Quite an interesting consideration. We go from the Knights Hospitaller to the Knights Templar. And
now, this one's my favorite. I'm going to speed him up a little bit, though. The Knights Templar is probably my favorite of these orders, just because there's so much woo-woo wrapped around them.
No more greater controversy than examining the account of the Knights Templar. Of the military orders that we're looking at today, the Knights Templar is the only military order that did not officially survive to the contemporary time frame. Now, it should be noted that there are many present-day organizations that claim a lineage or descendants from the Knights Templar. But is that true? Even looking at some of the original depictions, we have conflicts in terms of what uniforms they wore. It's also noted that the Knights Templar were featured as the frequent antagonists of many fictional works, all the way from the works of Walter Scott to Ridley Scott to this day. Quite an interesting consideration when you look at it. The Knights Templar met with a very undignified and horrifying end when its order was rejected by the Catholic Church, and at the urging of King Philip of France, their members were burned at the stake. Indeed, the order was completely destroyed. This being the last Grand Master of the Knights Templar, displayed right here, Jacques Dumoulin, who in the early 1300s...
Jacques Dumoulin?
Along with many prominent members...
What's with the Wolfman here? Look, there's a werewolf at the table.
The rest of the order were officially put to death. Now, is this exactly what happened in history? That an entire monastic military order was accused of heresy by a king? A monastic military order that apparently had more authority. Indeed, there is the requisite plaque that is dedicated to Jacques Dumoulin in Paris to this day. So what exactly happened? Why do we have these conflicting accounts with the Knights Templar? Why is it there are some that say that they were a force for good? And remember, all of these monastic military orders were originally founded to protect pilgrims. And yet, as stated earlier, when you look at fictional works such as the stories of Robin Hood, or even to this day, the modern Kingdom of Heaven, the Knights Templar...
I like that golden dome. I bet they're going to claim that that is a antenna or something to communicate with... Because there's this Tartarian overarching myth about the domes being like some kind of communication device. I don't know if he's going to get into it here or not.
They're always depicted as antagonists. Were they evil? Were they a corrupted force from the original defense forces of Tartaria? There's also the references that the Knights Templar were the Knights of the Dome, or Knights of the Round, even affiliations and references to King Arthur. They were present at the Battle of the Horns of Hattin, which was a decisive defeat when the forces of the Saracens defeated the Kingdom of Jerusalem and the major military orders, at least again according to the official history. But once again, is there a very different account? Why is it that there are so many references to the Knights Templar that exist to this day? Remember that there officially is not a direct lineage from the Knights Templar that survived. The order was all killed in the early 1300s. And yet, for whatever reason, we are informed that the symbols and the icons of the order are still prominently displayed on many of the successor organizations that continue to this day. Successor organizations...
Conspiracy. Hello, my unfinished journey.
Organizations that proudly display these icons. Are they the same icons?
Clap for
or is
the
there some other account
Wolfman.
behind this?
Yes.
And again, not knowing the true nature. Even looking at the recent TV show Robin of Sherwood, there's a prominent early first season episode called 7 Poor Knights of Acre, where Robin Hood is nearly killed by the Knights Templar and has to face off against 7 members of their order. Indeed, the entire conflict is started because the Knights Templar are trying to recover a material item, very different than their poor knights mentality. There's even an infamous line between the sheriff and the Knights Templar where the sheriff says he represents the king, and the Knights Templar respond by saying they represent the King of Kings. So how exactly was it then that a king of France was able to get this entire order excommunicated and deposed by the church? It seems to be a conflicting account. And yet when you
I mean, schisms happen all the time. There be schisms between knight orders of the knights in the Catholic Church. That's not to be unexpected. Once the knights wore out their usefulness to the church.
Look into the original account of the Knights Templar, there's nothing but conflicting accounts. The fact that apparently they...
But we do get Baphomet from this, because these guys were subject to the Inquisition, and some of them We're like, oh yeah, we worship a demon named Baphomet because they were tortured. It's the same stuff they did to the witches back then to get them to confess to kissing devil buttocks and stuff like that, and we get the image of Baphomet from that.
Evolved from being a very pious and very poor military force founded to protect pilgrims that ended up becoming one of the early, if not the earliest, bankers of Europe. Yes, all this is attributed to the Knights Templar. Now, is this true? Is this the original Knights Templar? Or was the order that was completely put to death and destroyed in the 1300s, or whatever time frame it really was, actually the original military defense force that did survive? And that the use and the references to the order is merely a corruption, or perhaps a means of showing a victory over a force that was found to be in conflict with the current powers that be? It's really hard to say. There's many possibilities. We don't know the exact allegiance or what really happened. It could well be that the Knights Templar that were put to death really were the corrupt villains that we often see depicted in fiction. Or it could be
They weren't. It was the Inquisition, yo. The church was redefining anything. Anything in operation outside of the Pope's control as of the devil. The Knights Templar, a 200-year-old order of mystics. Most, I mean, they started off as a military unit, but they were like mystics and priests and stuff. Like they had their own little sect, right, where they did all the things, and that was a threat to the church. The church was like, "Fuck these guys, they're witches, burn them." And what are you gonna do? Everybody was. They tortured you till you said you did the most abominable thing, so that they would stop torturing you and just let you die. That's how bad it was. And that's what they did. That's why you have all these middle-aged witches and werewolves and people confessing to all sorts of nonsense, black masses, and they point at each other. But the Knights of the Templar got caught up in that, and this was the result.
that there is something to be stated for the original pious and poor means that these knights had. It's always been one of the details I found interesting about the account of the Templars, and indeed the other monastic military orders, is the fact that they were stated to take a vow of poverty. And yet we have accounts of this great Templar fleet that roamed the Mediterranean and caused a lot of different issues. Indeed, there are still references in the accounts of the U.S. Navy that talk about the lineage of this Templar fleet, although some argue if it ever indeed existed. It's quite fascinating to consider.
So it's folklore. Let's make sure that we're presenting it as folklore and not fact then, buddy.
Many conflicting accounts of the Knights Templar. We have one account that they really were the great knights of old, much in the same vein as Arthur's knights, that put the concept of chivalry at the highest, and the basic form of chivalry, which was protecting those that could not defend themselves. Indeed, we see this in the baseline values of these military orders. And we even see this in this depiction of the two...
The original Baphomet was the head of John Baptiste. Okay, I'm not sure what you mean by that. So, Baphomet is a he, they, she. It's a they, them, because it has a goat's head, black fur all over the body, goat's head, a woman's chest, well, I shouldn't say a woman's chest. It has breast. He, she, they. It has breast. It has a penis. Cloven hooves. Raven wings. And it makes these symbols with its hands. I need a statue of Baphomet for my shelf behind me. Actually, I like Baphomet. I have Cthulhu back there already.
Knights Templars riding one horse because they lacked the money to purchase more horses. We also look at their very terrifying end. The official historical account which says that the entire order was destroyed, every member hunted down. There are some accounts, and indeed they're conflicting, that other orders did bring in the surviving members of the Knights Templar, such as the Teutonic Knights.
Yeah, King James was nuts. He was like James. Was James the Fifth, right? James is it James the First? The one that was right before the Elizabethan era. Yeah. I want to see a drag queen or king version of Baphomet. I would do that.
again indicating more of a relationship, despite the fact that there's many years between their official founding. And again, there's still many impressive structures that endure to this day, and whether you want to think of them as churches or fortifications, or both fortifications.
That's modern construction there, right? I mean, that looks like a modern building design. When I say modern, I mean like 20th century building designed in the style of ancient castle. I could be wrong, though. Maybe it is ancient, but...
with chapels, they do again show the very impressive signs of
that's what I
elaborate
expect to
advanced
see.
construction. And indeed, when we
That's what I expect to see when I talk about an old castle, an old actual ancient building.
look closely at many of the fortresses that are attributed to the Knights Templar, we'll find this advanced Gothic construction, as they call it. And is that all it is? Or does it have some other application? And indeed, is it the same account as the Castle of Malbork for the Teutonic Knights, that this was simply the structure that they occupied? I even think of the film Ice Pirates, which refers to evil Templars from the planet Mithra. So we can even go to science fiction, and in this case, a comical science fiction film.
Let's go to science fiction, of course. That's where we'll find the truth at.
We still have this legacy of the Templars being evil. It even says so in the opening crawl. And in the film, they're depicted as being science fiction medieval knights, if you will.
There you go, Ember. James the First of England is James the Sixth of Scotland.
So, but if you pay a lot of attention to the actual costumes, and indeed some of the symbols of the costume, you find that there seems to be something else that's indicated. And it's a wonderful chance to see a very...
Which we can circle all the way back and start talking about, get all the way back to Francis Bacon and Mary Queen of Scots and all, yeah, oh goodness. The tumultuous 15th through the 17th century for the British Isles. My.
Cheesy early 80s film, or more mid-80s film, with Robert Urich as one of the Ice Pirates. Also very interesting, considering the affiliation of Templars with pirates. But then, they're not the pirates? And indeed, as we said, there are many organizations that still display the symbols of the Templars, and indeed claim that they have a modern affiliation with the Templars, which is fascinating given the fact that the Knights Templar was completely...
I like their floofy hats. They're silly.
...destroyed. So is that really the account that's going on? Or is it simply a means of showing respect? But why would anybody show respect to an order that was excommunicated and order destroyed by the church? And finally,
because not everybody bows to the Catholic will that these guys were actually demon worshippers, y'all. Not everybody's like, oh, well, the Catholics said they worshipped Baphomet and were devil worshippers, and were excommunicated, so fuck those guys. No, they're still like, yeah, these guys were cool. They were like an order of knights that worked at whatever work they did, in their regions that they were operating in, and yeah, just doing their thing. So we don't have to bow to the Catholic Church. Holy shit.
The Order of the Holy Sepulchre. The Order of the Holy Sepulchre is probably the most intriguing. It's also officially the oldest. Founded by Godfrey of Bouillon, one of the central leaders of the First Crusade in 1099. The order endures to this day and indeed seems to have the largest official membership. It's facilitated by the Pope himself. We also have this depiction of King Baldwin IV, wearing the symbols of the Order of the Holy Sepulchre. Baldwin the Leper King, portrayed by Edward Norton in the film Kingdom of Heaven, and quite well. We look at many of the structures of the church.
Yeah, fabulous hats are an important part of religion. And then it's so crazy because, like, as a trans woman, I'm like, in ancient Babylon, I would have been a temple priestess, and here I am making YouTube videos for pocket change. Such is life.
Of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem, considered to be the most holy site by many within all of Catholic Christianity, and indeed other sects of Christianity. Of course, there are diverging views, but it is safe to say that this has always been a very important location. What was the reality, though, behind this particular order, and what happened with it? Why does, once again, we seem to have these conflicting accounts of what these orders actually did? Was it founded to protect pilgrims reaching the Holy Land? Was it founded to protect these very religious structures that have the affiliation with the trials and tribulations of the life of Jesus Christ himself? We even have early floor plans of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Do they represent something else? And is it possible that this structure might be a lot older than we could begin to imagine? I've oftentimes suspected that the baseline or the guidelines of the major monotheistic religions, and indeed all the other religions across the land, do have a lot of truth in them, and that they may have an origin that is far older than we can begin to imagine. But it's also suffice to say that many of these orders, no doubt, have been changed over time. How much of their original purpose endures to this day?
I'm surprised he didn't put the Masons on here. I guess the Masons aren't knights, they're Masons. But I'm sure he has Mason videos. We have to revisit at some point. But Knights were more interesting than Masons to me, because They're well, but mostly because of Baphomet. I'm not gonna lie, I like Baphomet.
You will find that this particular symbol comes up a lot along many holy books and many references to Jerusalem, and it indeed does represent the order of the Holy Sepulchre. But is there another account behind it? We oftentimes think about these references that each of these military orders have to the original Knights of the Round Table, or Knights of the Round, such as the Knights Templar. You'll also find that there are no shortage of fine burial arrangements for former members of the Order of the Holy Sepulchre. And quite fascinating that this order is still dominated by the Catholic Church to this day, with the Pope officially as the head of it. And then we have these old images of Jerusalem from the 1800s, and it already does look like it's been around for hundreds or thousands of years, and indeed it does conform to our expectations. We're going to have to do an exploration of Jerusalem at some point in time, and really look at the origin of some of these impressive structures. These are considered to be the most holy sites for the three major monotheistic religions in the land. But is there another account behind these structures? Did something behind these religions actually originate within the city of Jerusalem that's far beyond our current understanding? Or is it simply all as written between these different religions? This is referred to as Christian graffiti that's in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Very interesting looking.
Christian graffiti. Yeah, because we were, like, when it comes to the Middle East, we were invaders. We were vandals. We were an invading force coming in and fucking shit up. And yeah, any artwork that we made I say we because I'm European of ancestry. Any artwork that was made in public spaces in this portion of the world would have been vandalism.
Graffiti, and I find it fascinating that they refer to it as such. Is it possible, though, beyond all of these religious origin stories and these accounts of piety, that these orders actually have a different history than we could ever begin to imagine? That they are, in fact, the surviving military units of Tartaria's defense forces, the forces that did manage to survive the reset. Perhaps they took refuge in these incredible old world structures that for whatever reason were impervious to the effects of the reset. Perhaps they were simply trying to survive the forces that were trying to hunt them down and destroy them. Or it could be an entirely different account, that after the reset, these orders eventually declined and fell into corruption. And indeed, many of what we see with the ideals, the values of these orders being corrupted over time is a recurring theme. Originally, they were founded with the order of chastity, piety, and poverty. Yet, suddenly they gave themselves to material wealth. Looking in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, we see the...
give in to material wealth is not what it seems like to me he's trying to spin it that the Catholic Church excommunicated them because they became enamored of wealth. But actually it was like they worshipped the devil was the whole thing. And that's what the Catholic Church said about everybody else back then. Any other religious order or religion in general, any other religion, any other practices, heathenry and savagery, kissing the devil's butt.
The very depiction of Jesus Christ himself. And yet a very interesting artistic
Be safe, Ember.
depiction, especially when you pay attention to things such as the fingers. Is it possible that there's something else being alluded to in this beyond the divinity associated with Jesus Christ? What exactly is the art in this mosaic referring to? And is there another connection with these military orders that we cannot even begin to imagine? Indeed, we see...
So this is post-crucifixion, I guess. We got all this. We got three saints here. And you know they're saints because they have the halos over their heads. But this is Jesus. I'm not sure who all we have here. Where are my biblical scholars? Who are we looking at? Which saints were? Is this Thomas here? Obviously, Paul's not going to be here.
See the same signs of what we might think of as divine architecture with the...
I like that they're finally trying to get their Jesus on par with the Korean Jesus, though. Have y'all seen Korean Jesus? He's jacked, so at least they're giving their Greek Jesus, or I guess Tartarian Jesus, some apps.
Geometric precision and even the various incredible lighting behind it. There's no doubt that it may be the piety is quite real, that the religious and spiritual connection is quite real. Or it could also be possible that there is a much more complex and very unique explanation to understanding the true account of these military orders than we like to believe. It's also
Let's, who we looking at here, Cap? Which saints? Who's white beardy? You gotta know these guys, right? Korean Jesus is hot as fuck. He's ripped, right? He was here before. I think he was here before. Way back at the beginning of the show. He was here for Cryptic Corner, part of the show anyway. But you know, we have 3 saints. We have a saint in purple. And I'm guessing this is for a Catholic piece, but got a saint in purple. Too late. Yeah, you're more older stuff than that. Yeah, this is later church stuff. Oh, well, damn it.
Signs of
Don't put your hand up if you can't tell me who I'm looking at. No, okay, it's fine. This is like later development stuff. This is like medieval development of religion.
what we might think of as divine architecture, with the geometric precision and even the various incredible lighting behind it.
We were further ahead than that, though. Where are we at? I didn't mean to jump all the way back there. Let's talk about the magical lighting. There we were.
Wit of the University of Bologna. What are the odds of that? All these things seem to come together when you actually study history, and in a way that
Bologna.
doesn't seem to be easy to explain. Now, these connections would be explainable if perhaps the history was connected, or dare I say, even studied, and then brought
Kip out here talking about straddling testaments. Tell me more, doll.
to a point where things might overlap a little bit more than they're supposed to. Perhaps that's what we have going on with this account of these orders, and why we have so many conflicting accounts with their origin. And of course, in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, you again have these very unique and intriguing items, these most holy religious items. Is there something more behind them? Do they have a greater power that's beyond spiritual power?
I hope so. Let's get a magic mirror. Is that a magic Templarian mirror? Are we still in the Templar, or are we moved on to Holy Sepulchre? Yeah.
This is Edwin O'Brien, current Cardinal and former Archbishop of the Military Services of the United States. And he's also a member of the Order of the Holy Sepulchre. Now, isn't that interesting? The Military Services of the United States having an archdiocese. Now, of course, on the surface, that would not be too alarming or questionable because the military still has its chaplain corps. And, of course, the chaplain corps encompasses many different faiths. Of course, I find it interesting looking at this image of American service
Is it true that Kip Davis is the Karen of biblical scholarship? Word on the street.
actually being preached to while they have their weapons up on the wall. Now, is there anything alarming about that? No, it's just there's something that it reminds me of in the past. The past of having these monastic military orders that we're looking at in this exploration being preached to by members of the church hierarchy. And indeed, this particular individual who was the...
They got killer hats, though. They may be weird or maybe a strange church, but they got like some wicked hats.
Archbishop. It's also fascinating when you think of the other connections of the United States military, such as its ongoing presence within...
I do not consider Neil and Derek part of the biblical scholarship community. I'm sorry. They may talk to biblical scholars, but they aren't.
Europe that continues to this day, United States European Command, which is the major component command that has...
Or I shouldn't say they aren't. They'd be like freelance biblical scholars, I guess. Independent biblical scholars. I don't know how you describe that.
Been present within Europe since World War II, originally headquartered here in the IG Farben building. There's also the concept of the fact that the United States is the only nation whose military divides up all of the geographical areas of the known land into military areas of responsibility. And European Command is the major combatant command that is responsible for all of Europe, which also just happens to include the entire area of Russia. But back to the Order of the Holy Sepulchre, you can find there are...
Yeah, because the capital of Russia is in Europe. And then you move, as you move eastward, what you're experiencing is called colonialism.
Still many members that are active to this day who wear the icons and the symbols and the rather unique uniforms, if you will, of this particular order. Again, is this alluding to something? And indeed, this order has survived from its founding to today. There was never a time of purging or destruction. But we have to ask the question, why is it that these orders...
Enthusiastic, untrained amateurs. Yeah.
...endure to this day? Why are they venerated in such a manner? And did the orders originally survive? You can even wear some pretty fancy uniforms if you're a member of the Order of the Holy Sepulchre. Or if you're one of the other...
Ooh, a sash. If you join this order, you can get a black sash.
There are current organizations that claims to have a lineage from one of these original holy orders. So
Get a gold necklace. Hell yeah.
what's the connection? Is this an actual connection? Or is this merely a display of trophies, if you will? A defeat or a victory of these original orders? It's hard to know what the history is really about, and of course, after seeing these uniforms, I realized I was probably a little too critical of the uniforms that were shown in Dune the miniseries on the Sci-Fi Channel. I always thought the Sardaukir's headgear looked a little, well, silly, but now I'm reevaluating it.
Yeah, the silly hats are important for any kind of religious order. I think we can all agree on that.
I also think of the connection of the Brotherhood of Steel from the Fallout series. Going back to the original 2 games, the Brotherhood of Steel was actually descended from a U.S. Army unit that had survived the Great War, or the nuclear exchange, or the...
Oh yeah, Tim Pool cracked the ceiling. He made it. He got made fun of on the Daily Show. He got roasted on the Daily Show about
reset event, if you will, in the Fallout universe. That they preserved technology and gradually evolved into an entirely new organization, a Brotherhood of Steel. Indeed, their original leader was depicted as being Captain John Maxon, a U.S. Army
proto-stormtrooper
captain who was rather abhorred by the actions that the scientists in the facility that he was charged with protecting were committing against innocent individuals. And he took matters into his own hands and killed the scientists. Now, of course, you could argue that there'd be no modern military officer who would do a thing like this. It might be bad for his officer evaluation. But the entire concept, though, of a military unit that had been descended and then evolved after a reset event taken from the Brotherhood of Steel seems to apply to what we're looking at for these monastic military orders. But as always, the official history could be true. Again, it just doesn't seem to be likely that every single detail...
But the video game history could also be true. I mean, it could be the real history. It could be the history from the video game. We got to keep an open mind here.
Tale of it is true, and maybe significant portions of it have been altered. But what are your thoughts? What do you think about the military orders? Are they the remnants of the defense forces of Tartaria? And why all the connections to this day? Thank you for joining me. Please like, comment, and subscribe.
Please comment and subscribe. All right. So, that was Lucius Aurelian giving us the Knights of Tartaria. And like I was saying before, they got a lot of out there weird stuff. The Occult in the Old World sounds fun. That's from 5 months ago. Sport of Kings. What? These are members only, though. I'm not a member. Unknown Lands. Here's the Star Forts. See the Star Forts? They're all about the Star Forts. Vatican map. Members only. We talked about the Vatican, though, last week. The Secret Vaults. Was that last week or was it the week before? It was last week, wasn't it? I lose track of time. My days run together anymore. Don't get old, kids. Yeah, Vaults of the Vatican was last week. Definitely. And it was like, hell yeah. It was a lot of nonsense. Beanie Shapiro. Yes. Actually, do I have time for that? I think I do. Here.
The quantum effect wipes out pain and allergy symptoms in less than 30 seconds with 0 drugs.
Huey Strong.
Pastor Dave and hundreds of
You silly bitch. Here we go.
Whores in this house. There's some whores in this house. There's some whores in this house. There's some whores in this house.
I said certified freak. 7 days a week. Wet ass P word. Make that pull-out game weak. Yeah, you effin' with some wet ass P word. Bring a bucket and a mop for this wet ass P word. Give me everything you've got for this wet ass P word. Beat it up, N word, catch a charge. Extra large and extra hard. Put this P word right in your face. Swipe your nose like a credit card. Hop on top, I wanna ride. I do a kegel while it's inside. Spit in my mouth, look in my eyes. This P word is wet, come take a dive. And continue along these lines. And it gets significantly more vulgar. Like, a lot more vulgar.
Muted. There we go. All right. Thank you so much for tumbleweeds. Yeah. I got my audio back now. Thank you. That's gonna wrap up our coverage of the Knights of Tartaria and their impact on the secret world of hidden before the reset. It looks like they have a 2.5 hour live stream. Holy shit, let me show this to you guys. Of Willem Dafoe content. The marvelous old world of Willem Dafoe. Dafoe's old world. What the hell? Hold on, we're gonna look real quick. He is great in Spider-Man. My brother really likes the Boondock Saints. I don't get it, but he really likes it. Yeah, so holy shit. If somebody wants to come on and do a review of this video with me Tuesday night. Yeah, I muted everything. I'm dumb. Yeah. But it's just, yeah, video of, I should watch it again.
Land of origin of Willem Dafoe, that being the state of Wisconsin.
It's really weird.
Come join me as we explore the marvelous old world of Willem Dafoe.
Like what? So someone needs to do this with me. Holy shit, that's crazy. Anyway, yeah, I'm going to wrap this segment up here. Then we got the bestiary, and then I'm going to go do a protest or something. So, yeah. That was Lucius Aurelian from Restitutor Orbis talking about the Knights of Tartaria. I wonder if Willem Dafoe is a Knight of Tartaria. That might explain a lot. What if Willem Dafoe is Saint Germain, and Saint Germain is a Knight of Tartaria? Yeah. We got it all figured out. All right, so I am going to wrap this segment up here. We got a short intermission. And then I will be coming back with Bree's Bestiary, and we'll be finishing out the show with that. So don't go anywhere. Do not leave me. I already see I've lost 10 people since I started doing the closing for this. So don't leave. Thank you, Miss Desk. That kiss is for you. Don't let Dave have it. It's for you. I'll be right back. See you in a minute. Hello, my beauties and bees, and welcome to another installment of Bree's Bestiary. It doesn't need to be dark in here because we're talking. Well, maybe it will be dark in here for this one because we're adventuring into the caves. Do you all know what a troglodyte is? Do you know what a troglodyte is? Troglodyte means cave person, a person who lives in caves. There's still troglodytes today, people that live in, there's whole cities underground. But a troglobite is an organism specifically evolved to live in caves. You'll see a lot of invertebrate troglobites, spiders, isopods, insects, beetles. Fish tend to become troglobites. But another vertebrate that often becomes a troglobite are amphibians. And none punctuate this more than the ohm, which some people might think looks a lot like an axolotl, which you might get in the pet trade. You've seen an axolotl. They got the frizzy things, the derpy little faces, but ohms are the next level of cave evolved. And there's a species here in Texas that looks a lot like an ohm, which we'll talk about at the end of the show, or at the end of the segment. But to help us out in understanding what an ohm is and their ecology, I found this channel called Out of Place Zoologist. He's super adorable. I'm going to let him do his little intro here, telling who he is.
Hey, are you lost? Welcome anyway. I'm Out of Place Zoologist. If that's too long, you can just call me OpZoo. I'm an actual zoologist, an academic to be precise. So I do have proper degrees and had published several research articles. But just think of me as a random guy on the internet, to be honest. Currently, most of my videos are on unpopular or misunderstood topics around zoology through my What Exactly Is series. But I do plan to do other things when I get a bigger audience. Well, if I do, that is.
Yeah.
I will upload at least once a week, unless I'm stuck doing research in the jungle for a long time or something. So, if you are into that, consider subscribing. Oh, and I basically do everything myself, so pardon the quality. No AI at all, if you care about that. Anyway, enjoy your day.
Yeah, so that's who we're watching. But we're watching him talk about...
That's the term used for animals that exclusively lives inside an underground troglobites. That's the term used for animals that exclusively lives inside an underground habitat. In most cases, it's cave. Troglobites are mostly weird, compared to their non-cave dwelling relatives, that is. One of the oldest known troglobites and...
Yes, that is what pan-troglodytes, or the troglodyte and pan-troglodytes means. But it means, basically means chimpanzee caveman, or ape caveman. Small ape caveman. But we all know chimpanzees don't live in caves, but the people who named them, yeah.
Probably one of, if not the most famous one, is the ohm. Let me bring up the question. What exactly is ohm? It's probably obvious, but ohm is a salamander.
They're so cute. Look at them. They got the flat. See, they're like axolotls. They got their gills look like little clown hair poofs, and they got a long snoot. You can think of it like a ohm is like the crocodile to the axolotl's alligator in that way. But ohms have been in caves a lot longer than axolotls, and it shows. Their legs are just the tiniest little things, just to push the body through tight crevices. And they don't have any eyes to speak of, but...
Ohm is the only species in its genus. The genus is Proteus, and ohm itself is Proteus anguinus. Proteus is the name of a sea god, while anguinus means snake-like. Well, I think so at least. I might be mistaken. The common name itself is the German name for them, der Grotten Ohm, aka the cave ohm. Okay, but what exactly is the word?
Der Grotten Ohm. I like saying that. Der Grotten Ohm. I'm sorry, I messed it up there. Der Grotten Ohm. They look like baby dragons. I think they look like baby dragons, the little pom-pom poof gills.
What olm means. I am actually not sure. People just think it's a way to call salamander, but I don't think it's common. But anyway, olms are sometimes called human fish by the locals because of the skin color and texture. They are also called cave salamander because, well, they are salamanders that live inside caves. During its discovery, locals thought olms are the offsprings of cave dragons, which are quite an interesting thought if I do say so myself. But anyway, let's get back to scientific stuffs. The family bears its name, which is Proteidae. This family have two genera. One is Proteus, of course, and the other is Nectarus, which includes the more famous water dog, which is not a dog, of course. It's aquatic salamander from the Americas. Olms themselves are not from the
Water dog. They call a lot of things dog, though. Crawls in your nostrils at night and lays eggs. No, he's a cutie pie. Him no bad. He's a little squirmy guy. Looking for nom-noms in the cave.
Americas. Olms can only be found along the underground water systems of the limestone karst in Central and Southeastern Europe. Next, let's talk about their morphology. Olms are salamander, so naturally, they have a tail and 4 legs. That differentiate them from the Anorans and Caecilians. Olms are one of the neotenic salamander, apparent in the fact that their adults do retain.
Do you all know what neonatic means? Because it means they're retaining juvenile traits into adulthood. They never develop lungs so much to breathe. They continue all through their life to breathe through gills, and you see on the tail how it's rayed. That's a neonatic trait. But I'll let him.
In these large external gills, just like most other troglobites, they have reduced eyes. They technically still have eyes, but it's underdeveloped and covered with skin, so they are mostly blind. Their skins are almost non-pigmented, so it's translucent. Olms are actually one of the biggest troglobites that currently exist. They have an elongated body which can grow up
Here comes some size measurements, Dr. Kip. You were speculating on how tiny they were.
to 30 centimeters, which is not that big if you compare that to no.
That's a foot long, so about like that.
Cave-dwelling animals, but that is quite exceptional among the troglobites. Even among extant salamanders, that is still quite long, as salamanders are mostly around 15 to 20 centimeters long. Their front legs only have 3 digits, while their rear legs only have 2. In case you didn't know, salamanders usually have 5 digits on each foot, by the way. Even though they look
reduced digits because of evolution. Did you know that axolotls? Yes, 30 centimeters is a foot. Did you know that axolotls that they stay this way too, like with the gills and stuff, their whole entire life? But with iodine, you can actually make them mature into a tiger salamander. Wonder what it would do to an olm.
like they have a flat face like those things you can find in horror movies or games. They do have mouth. They also have tiny teeth. They also have 2 very small nostrils which are practically unrecognizable. But yeah, it's there. Okay, so what we were talking about is the regular olm. There is actually a subspecies of the olm called the black olm.
With
These
eyes.
are actually quite normal. Their pigments are normal.
They have eyes, they have skin coloration, they still retain their gills. They're very much more like an axolotl in appearance,
showing darker brownish or blackish coloration. They also have normal looking eyes and their body is relatively short. Basically, they look like your regular salamander. This subspecies is endemic in the underground water near Chernomel, Slovenia. I'm just gonna put the name here in case I completely butchered the pronunciation.
Yeah, I'm not gonna try it.
Let's talk about their lifestyle and
know what? I
behavior.
always say that, then I end up doing it anyway. I'm gonna try it. Let's see how he says it.
Slovenia. I'm subspecies short. Basically, they look like your regular salamander. This subspecies is endemic in the underground water near Chernomel, Slovenia. I'm just gonna put the name here.
No, Milk, Kronmelk, Slovenia. Kronmelk. That's what I'm going with.
Here in case I completely butchered the pronunciation. Next, let's talk about their lifestyle and behavior. But before that, we actually know quite a lot about Olm.
Rest your eyes and stay
Relatively,
hydrated. I
is,
like that.
Compared to some other weird animals that I covered in my channel at least. Olms are, of course, aquatic animals. They live in cool and well-oxygenated water.
They look like dragons. I love them. It looks like Falcor from Neverending Story.
Underground. They swim by undulating their body, but their legs can help them turn to some
I can swim by undulating my body, but it costs extra.
extent. Olms are carnivorous. They mostly eat small crustaceans and insect larvae. But since they live in underground caves and food can be scarce a lot of the time, they are basically opportunistic predator, meaning they eat whatever they can. They swallow their prey whole. Their small teeth help trap food particles inside their oral cavity.
Hellbenders are the biggest amphibians in North America.
There was an experiment that shows they can survive 10 years without food, which is quite an exceptional feat, but very helpful because, like I
10
say,
years without
food can be
food.
scarce in their habitat.
Y'all, 10 years without food now. Come on, that's impressive.
Just like many other salamanders, olms can be territorial, especially males in breeding season. However, since combat can be a major waste of energy, they mostly do a display contest instead of actually fighting each other. Breeding males will secrete pheromones in their territory to attract females.
That's hot. Look at them secreting pheromones. Get it, daddy, get it.
Males will deliver spermatophores to the female cloaca. The sperm cells will then enter the cloaca and fertilize the egg cells. They are oviparous. Females can lay up
If you want to see my cloaca, it's Spider Gwen.
to 70 eggs, but usually around 30 eggs. It is reported that females will breed every 12.5 years on average, which is
That's not very often.
exceptional because most salamanders breed annually. Breeding every 12.5 years would mean they either have a very long lifespan or they have a very slow reproduction rate, which could negatively impact their survival. Well, the good news is they do have a long lifespan.
A crazy long lifespan.
Research had predicted a maximum lifespan of 100 years, with an average of around 68.5 years. They reach sexual maturity at around 15 years old. That's an outlier, by the way, because most salamander can barely even reach 15 years old. Good news is, olms don't really have a natural predator.
It's because they live in such a cold place, such a cold environment.
Still, they are sometimes eaten by bigger animals that got lost in the cave system.
Troglobites tend to live longer than their surface counterparts.
Alright, I did talk about their behavior like always, but let's not forget the fact that they are practically blind. So, how could they do their routine when they cannot see? Well, they do have exceptional sensory receptors on their elongated head. The head skin itself is sensitive to light due to the melanopsin pigment. They are seen swimming away from light sources. They also have exceptional chemoreceptors. Chemoreception is most likely their main way of prey detection.
And that's the main way of most troglobite detection is chemoreception. That's why centipedes and such do so well in roaches, because they all already have chemorecepting antennae that are really, really finely tuned. Could you imagine having your lungs on the side of your face, though? I'd be a little...
They can also sense sound waves in the water with the sensory epithelium of their inner ears. There was also a research that showed they have electroreceptors called ampullary organs. So yeah, detection is not exactly a problem for them, as long as they stay in the water, that is. Detection on air is most likely a problem, but they shouldn't exceed the water in the first place. However, recently, there are sightings of them near the surface, and it is talked about in this article right here, but they still mostly live underground. Olms are considered vulnerable by the IUCN Red List of threatened
I
species.
wonder if pollution drives them to the surface.
Olms are limited to the underground water systems, which is why they are very specialized for such life. The thing is, their habitat is very vulnerable to pollutants. Not only that, their habitat is fragmented. So basically, their habitat is technically easily disturbed, and if it is disturbed, Olms will greatly be affected by it. Oh, by the way, Olms have been an icon in their respective nation. In Slovenia, Olms are natural heritage. It is listed in the Slovenian Red List of Endangered Species. It is considered critically endangered in Croatia and is protected by the legislation. Olms also bring enthusiasm from researchers and tourists.
I'm fucking enthusiastic for them, I'll tell you right now.
A cave in Slovenia is famous for its olm and has been a successful ecotourism spot in Slovenia. So yeah, attention and research on olm is not gonna stop, for a while at least. Who knows what peculiar information will be learned about them in the future. But for now, let's just learn what is known. And that's all for now. Oh, by the way.
Alright, now we have...
Hi, I'm Andy, and this is Texas Blind Cave Salamander, Take 5. The Texas Blind Cave Salamander lives in total darkness.
And this looks a lot like an olm, right?
They have no eyes. Instead, they have two tiny black dots under their skin. Those feathery ears that you see are actually gills that they use to breathe under the water. These animals are predators, and here at the zoo we feed them shrimp and other small invertebrates. They rely on very, very clean water, and because of pollution where they're found, these animals are listed as an endangered
How many
species.
toes do they have?
The next time
3
you're
on
at
the front
Brookfield
feet.
Zoo, please stop by the Living Coast and see some of these amazing animals.
Them super cute. All right. So that was the olm and Texas blind salamander talking about troglobites. It's time to leave the cave though, because I believe the sun is shining. The sun is shining outside. It's gonna be a hot one today. Such a hot one. But I gotta go use my voice. Gotta do something. I can't just sit on my ass and do nothing. So, no King Day. Here we come. Thank you for joining me for Breeze Bestiary. Please remember to be kind, take care, and see you next time. All right, live from the Hive audience. Sorry, that was a real quick transition because I started talking about something I wanted to talk about after I closed out Breeze Bestiary. So, yeah, I'm gonna go do my thing. I will have the polls will be up here on the community page, on the community post page for Hive Sci. So if you're subscribed, you come out here. Usually I get the polls up by Monday. Sometimes I get them up by Sunday. But you'll be able to vote on the polls to see what we cover. Yeah. And St. Germain's coming off here because it won. So we'll have Spooky Scary Skeletons. We'll have The Beast of Busco and the Nanny Bear. And we'll have Behold the Sky Trumpets, Charming the Serpent, and Supernatural Serial Killers. And then on both these polls, we'll have an additional option to choose from. But yeah, no King Day. It's no King Day. Let's do this. All right, friends. Please remember to be kind and take care. And yeah, I'm definitely all about using my voice. So let's go. All right. And that's going to be it. Hive Science out.
This shit, bro. Oh, hell no. No. Man. Hey, bro. Hey. Bro, f all that. Hey, Prime, f all that shit, bro. Man, fuck. Hey, f all. Hey, Prime. Hey, you got me, fool. You got me, right? Bro, what's up, bro? Hey. What the?
Yeah, hug me.
What the fuck?
Hug me. I want you to hug
Hey,
me.
what?
What's up?
Man, what the fuck? That? Hold on, bro. I think he got a knife. Not shit. Shit.
With all the noise, pseudoscience, and political rhetoric clogging the airwaves about transgender people, it can be difficult to understand what's really happening and what's really true. Good news, everyone! Welcome to The Transpositions, your compass in the rugged landscape of transgender issues. Here, we strive to be the beacon of authenticity, providing a platform that amplifies the voices and experiences of the transgender community. From breaking news to in-depth features to breaking down the real science, we are committed to fostering understanding, empathy, and empowerment for all individuals across the gender spectrum. Join us as we navigate the complexities, celebrate the triumphs, and advocate for the rights of transgender people worldwide. Together, we can redefine boundaries, challenge stereotypes, and champion inclusivity. Subscribe today. The link is in the